Chapter 195. Even Gong Chenshua's diehard followers, the men who adore her, can only give way when they see her. Because she stinks too much. Unless you plug your nose, you'll vomit out yesterday's meal if you get close to her. Gong Chenshua's lungs are about to explode from anger. She screams with bone-deep hatred, "Jun Muyan, just you wait, I'll make you die without a burial." The next day, she directly leaves Jingcheng country and goes to Tiandao sect. In Jingcheng country, she has already searched for all the famous doctors and apothecaries, but none of them can cure this strange poison. In this world, the only one who can help her is senior Jian Feng of Tiandao sect. Muyan, who's far away in Kaiyang country, doesn't know what's happening in Jingcheng country. At this very moment, she's entertaining an unexpected guest. Xia An's Ghost City's Ghost King, Xia Yi. Xia Yi's expression is respectful, and he gets straight to the point. "Miss Jun, coming to find you today is the sincerity of Ghost City. We hope to cooperate with you." Muyan raises her eyebrows. "Cooperation? Are you talking about the special drafts?" Xia Yi shows a wry smile and nods. "You guessed right. I've come here in hopes that Miss Jun can provide a portion of the special drafts to our Ghost City every month. We'll buy them at double the price of the Junji drugstore." Muyan says with a smile that isn't a smile, "You should know my rules." Xia Yi says, "Ghost City doesn't want Miss Jun to break the rules. But the amount of special drafts that Junji drugstore sells every day is very small. I believe that with Miss Jun's ability, it would be a piece of cake to refine the same amount of drafts. This way, it wouldn't be breaking the rules, right?" Xia Yi really doesn't know what else to do. Because of the emergence of the Junji drugstore special drafts, almost everyone in Xi'an who wants to buy drafts runs to the Junji drugstore. The Ghost City's trading house exists in name only. If this goes on, I'm afraid that even the prestige of the Ghost City will be damaged. If it were any other apothecary, the Ghost City would have already seized it by force. But as it happens, they run into this evil star. It doesn't count as breaking the rules. Mu Yang teased, "But why should I refine another batch?" Xia Yi clenches his teeth, only then does he get up and respectfully hand over a dark purple token to Muyan. "This is my Ghost City's Shinshu token, a special token that has never been given out in the last 300 years. Holding this Shinshu token, in any Ghost City of the Yenwu continent, one can enjoy privileges second only to the King of Hell." As soon as Shintu gave the order, the infernal judges and ghost servants all obeyed. "This is my Ghost City's expression of sincerity towards Miss Jun." Mu Yang narrowed her eyes slightly, her gaze falling on the Shintu token as she slowly said, "I may not stay in Xi'an City for long." "It doesn't matter at all." As soon as Xia Yi sees that her tone has loosened, he immediately says excitedly, "Although there's only one entrance to my Ghost City in Kaiyang, Jingcheng and Huangyao, our hands and informants are all over the cities and towns. No matter where you go, Miss Jun, our cooperation will continue, and we will not trouble you to run around." Mu Yang ponders for a moment, then slowly hooks up her lips. "All right, deal." Having just sent off Xia Yi, Mu Yang prepares to accompany Xiao Bao to practice martial arts for a while. But Haitang comes in and reports, "Miss, Shen Xiaoro requests an audience." Shen Xiaoro requests an audience. This time, Mu Yang is really surprised. But very quickly, she reveals a meaningful smile. "Please come in." Chapter 196. After not seeing her for a few days, Shunshiro's injuries still haven't completely subsided, and her complexion is pale and sallow. Different from the arrogant and despotic attitude of that day at the restaurant, she immediately shows a tearful expression when she sees Muyan today. "Muyan Maimai, it was Big Sister's fault a few days ago." Big Sister was really too surprised. "You're still alive, so I got a little carried away. Can you forgive Big Sister?" Muyan looks at her indifferently, then spits out 2 words, "No." Shinxiaro immediately chokes. Her face distorts for a moment, and it takes a long while before she calms down. With even more tearful eyes, she mournfully says, "Muyan Maimai, Big Sister knows that you still blame Big Sister, but in the end, we are a family. Father and Big Brother have been looking for you all these years. Now that they know that you're still alive, they must be very happy. Muyan Maimai, quickly come back to the Shen family with me." Hearing the words father and big brother, Muyen's expression becomes absent-minded for a moment. She spared Shinxiao's dog life. It's precisely because she wants to know the situation of her adoptive father and brother. She also wants to know what that good adoptive mother of hers did back then. In her previous life, because of the death of the child in her womb, she hated the Su family, hated her adoptive mother, and thus hated her adoptive father and brother. But her adoptive father was kind to her, so Muyen didn't retaliate. From then on, she paid no attention to the family, acting like a stranger. However, after a short 3 years, she received news of her adoptive father's death. Another year passed, and even her brother died unexpectedly during his experimental learning. Only after a long time did Muyen know that her adoptive father and brother had looked for her. What happened to the Shen family in her previous life? Seeing Muyen's indifferent appearance, Shinxiao can't help but grit her teeth. Finally, she resorts to her killer move. Jun Muyen, do you know that father is seriously ill now? After all, you've been in the Shen family for so many years. Shouldn't you go back to the Shen family to see father and show your filial piety? Father is seriously ill? Muyen's expression is indifferent and solemn, coldly looking at her. Shinxiao was really scared by Muyen a few days ago, and she suddenly shivers. But she quickly adjusts her expression, wiping her tears and says, yes, father has been ill for a long time. Shouldn't you go back and see him? Jun Muyen, although father isn't related to you by blood, he still raised you for so many years. You can't be so cold-blooded and heartless. Mu Yang slowly relaxes her body, leaning on the chair, and unhurriedly says, all right, I'll go back with you. Are you really willing to go back to the Shen family with me? Shinxiao excitedly jumped up from the chair. 3 days later, wait for me at the gate of Xi'an. Receiving Muyen's affirmative answer, Shinxiao excitedly leaves. After walking out of Junji drugstore, the excitement on her face is immediately replaced by resentment and ecstasy. Ha ha ha. Jun Muyen, you're beautiful now, so what if you know alchemy? Aren't you still being deceived by me, Shinxiao? Wait till you come back to the Shen family with me, haha. Then what awaits you is a fate more miserable than hell. Jun Muyen, your good days are over. I will make you pay back the humiliation you gave me a few days ago 1,000 times over. 3 days later, a carriage quietly stops in front of Junji drugstore. Are Yu Yang, Old Dao, Chen Qingfeng and the people from the ink camp are all respectfully standing in front of the carriage. Chapter 197. Muyen nods and looks at Chen Qingfeng. Have you really decided to go to Chenyuan City with me? After all, this is your ancestral property. Chen Qingfeng nods without hesitation. From the day I decided to follow Miss Jun, I was already Mrs. Person. Wherever you are, my mother and I will be there. What's more, if it weren't for you, Qingfeng would have already lost his only relative, let alone the ancestral property. Muyen sees his resolute expression and no longer says anything more. She carries Xiao Bao and boards the carriage. Before lowering the curtain, she can't help but sweep her gaze over the courtyard next to Junji drugstore. Di Mingju, in the end, he's just a passerby in her and Xiao Bao's lives. Gently shaking her head, Muyen lets go and lowers the curtain. The carriage slowly heads towards Xi'an City Gate. City Gate. Senior brother, why don't you come back to Chenyuan City with me? It's rare that Xi'an and Chenyuan City are so close. My mother really wants to see you. Shinxiao sticks to Bai Chen's side, chattering non-stop. Jiao Chenyu can't help but turn his face white, his face full of disgust. Bai Chen's expression is cold, not even bothering to answer. Shinxiao's eyes flash with a hint of melancholy, and she suddenly says in a sweet voice, Senior brother, I'm afraid you still don't know, but this time, Muyen is going back to the Shen family with me. As soon as she says this, Bai Chen really lifts his head. Even Jiao Chenyu can't help but say, you're talking nonsense, right? How could that godly alchemist go with you? Shinxiao gets Bai Chen's attention, and she feels proud. But when she thinks that this attention came because she mentioned Muyen's name, there's a burst of jealousy in her heart. But on the surface, she has to put on a calm and indifferent expression. Muyen is my Shen family's adopted daughter. Now that she's grown up, Isn't it only right and proper for her to return to the Shen family to repay the grace of raising her? My mother has found a good school for little sister Muyin. Before he could finish his words, he sees a carriage speeding over. It stops at the city gate, and Muyin, dressed in a moon-white dress, gets down from it. The morning sun falls on her elegant and beautiful countenance, as if it's plated with a layer of light. Jiao Chenyu is simply stunned, muttering, "So beautiful." Even Bai Ichen's eyes flickered slightly. Shen Xiaoro tightly clenched her hands into fists. It took her quite a while to control herself. She stepped forward and said with a smile, "Little sister Muyin, why did you only come now?" He reached out to grab her hand to show his affection, but was pushed away by Feng Haitang. Her beautiful face was cold and expressionless. "Sorry, our miss doesn't like to interact with strangers. You, a mere servant, how dare you point fingers at me? Who do you think you are?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and was about to slap Feng Haitang's beautiful face. However, just as she raised her hand into the air, it was ruthlessly grabbed by a thick hand that resembled a cattail leaf fan. "Ah, it hurts, it hurts. Quickly let go." Shen Xiaoro's face contorted in pain, and the bones in her hand made creaking sounds. Only then did Yang Haotian violently fling her a few steps away. He then looked at Feng Haitang worriedly, but happened to meet Feng Haitang's deep and focused eyes. Yang Haotian's heart fiercely trembled, and he promptly turned his head away, maintaining his expressionless face. Feng Haitang sighed softly, and slowly stepped back to stand by Muyin's side. Chapter 198. Jun Muyin, this slut, she actually lets her subordinates bully her again and again, but no matter how angry she was, Shen Xiaoro did not dare to act rashly this time. She grits her teeth and looks at Muyin. "Can we go now?" Muyin smiles. "Let's go." When Jiao Chenyu sees that Mu Yang really wants to go to Chenyuan City with Shen Xiaoro, he can't help but feel a burning passion in his heart. He looks at Bai Ichen expectantly. He had been stuck at the bottleneck for a long time. If he could travel with Jun Muyin, maybe he could ask for a bottle of filter of barrier breaking? Bai Ichen pondered for a moment, then took a step forward and said, "If you don't mind, can you allow us to travel together? Senior brother, are you really willing to go to the Shen family with me to see my parents?" When Shen Xiaoru heard that Bai Ichen was going to Chenyuan City, she was so excited that she didn't even care about the pain in her hand. Jiao Chenyu once again rolls his eyes, simply about to be defeated by this woman's shamelessness. Ichen apprentice brother is obviously talking to Miss June. Who was going to see her parents? Was there something wrong with this person? Bai Ichen doesn't pay attention to Shen Xiaoro, but looks at Mu Yang. Muyin leisurely smiles. "Why not? Xiaobao, don't you agree?" Holding Mu Yang's hand, Xiaobao nods expressionlessly. Uncle Rabbit Lantern, he did not dislike. The corners of Bai Ichen's mouth curled up as a gentle smile appeared in his eyes. When Shen Xiaoro saw this scene, she was so angry that her whole body was trembling. Bitch. You can only take advantage of this time to be arrogant. Wait till we get back to the Shen family, I will teach you a lesson." She suppressed her anger and shouted, "What are you waiting for? If we don't leave now, we won't be able to reach Chenyuan City by nightfall. Do you want to be buried in the stomachs of strange beasts in Wuwang Mountain Range?" Wuwang Mountain Range is a mountain range between Xia and City and Chenyuan City. There were very special beasts that lurked in the night and came out at night. They were extremely ferocious and often appeared in groups. Ordinary martial artists could not deal with it at all. Therefore, most people did not dare to walk on this mountain path when it was dark. Otherwise, it would be courting death. Just as the crowd was about to mount their horses and carriages, a voice suddenly rang out. Suddenly, a group of people galloped over from the city. This time, it was still a carriage. However, it was not a carriage for people, but a carriage for goods. There were more than 20 carriages, and they were all filled with boxes and cages. The one in the lead was a middle-aged man. His face was ordinary, but the light in his eyes was restrained. Even Bai Ichen was unable to see through his cultivation. A look of astonishment appeared on his face. When the caravan comes near, the middle-aged man dismounts the horse and quickly walks in front of Muyin. He bows and salutes. Ghost City's new magistrate, Dai Xiong, greets Miss Jun. Hiss. Gao Chunyu inhales a mouthful of cold air. WWWW what? Ghost City's magistrate? Wasn't that a Xiantian realm expert? Moreover, that's the Ghost City's magistrate Why is he so respectful towards Muyan? Shen Xiaoru was even more dumbstruck, unable to react for a moment. However, Dai Xiong did not care about their reactions. He raises his head and shows a fawning smile to Muyan. Xia Yangwang heard that Miss Jun is leaving Xia and to settle down in Tianyuan City, so he specially had his subordinates prepare a humble gift for you. He hopes that you and the little Gongzi will be able to live comfortably in Tianyuan City. As he spoke, he turned around and pointed at the cages behind him. Chapter 199. After Dai Xiong's introduction, the ghost envoy behind him immediately opens several of the boxes. Inside, the glittering jewels and rare herbs are all revealed. Gao Chunyu swallows his saliva with a gudong sound. Shen Xiaoro stares straight ahead, her eyes full of greed and desire. These things, if they all become hers, Dai Xiong also sees the greed in Shen Xiaoro's eyes. He can't help but laugh contemptuously, and says in a clear voice, Ghost King has ordered that these are gifts from Ghost City to Miss June. If anyone dares to snatch them, then they will be making life difficult for my Ghost City. Clatter. Shen Xiaoro's heart that was just burning hot suddenly falls from the clouds. She gnashes her teeth in anger, looking at Muyan with eyes that can almost spit out fire. So many heavy things, how can we pass through the Wuwang Mountains tonight? Jun Muyan, do you want to kill us all on the road for your own selfish desires? Muyan still hasn't spoken. Dai Xiong already sneers. This girl, rest assured. How could there be any reason for my Ghost City's gifts to be lacking? This one will accompany Miss Jun to escort these gifts to the gates of Tianyuan City. This one doesn't care about insignificant strange beasts. Some people don't need to worry about groundless things. Gao Chunyu suddenly widens his eyes, looking at Dai Xiong, then looking at Muyan. The Ghost City's magistrate is actually personally escorting them to Tianyuan City. This Jun Muyan, what kind of divine being is she? Not to mention Gao Chunyu and Shen Xiaoro, even Muyan herself is somewhat surprised. She and Ghost City only have a cooperative relationship. Hearing that she's leaving, Ghost City actually came to send gifts and send her off. Isn't this treatment a bit too good? What's more, Xiaoran's Ghost City is almost emptied by her. How could there be so many gifts for her? Xiaoran's Ghost City. Ghost King, are we really going to give so many treasures to Jun Muyan? The magistrate says with a sullen face, this is half of our Ghost City's treasures. Xia Yi fiercely glares at him, and says gloomily, do you think I want to? But this is an order from the Ghost King himself. He wants us to absolutely serve this Miss Jun well, we can't neglect her. If the Ghost King himself came, he's afraid that his entire Ghost City would be emptied for Jun Muyan. The same doubts as Gao Chunyu arise in Xia Yi's mind. This Jun Muyan, just where did she come from? In the evening, the sun was setting in the west, and the last ray of light on the horizon disappeared. Roars of beasts could be heard from time to time in the Wuwang mountain range. It was as if he could see pairs of green eyes hidden in the bushes. I don't want to die, I don't want to die. Senior brother, save me. Shen Xiaoro screamed and tried to pounce on Bai Ichen, but she missed. She has no choice but to settle for the next best thing. She tightly clings to Gao Chunyu's arm, shivering and shrieking, what should I do? What to do? Although the strange beasts in the Wuwang Mountains can only come out at night, each of them is at least in the Earth stage. There are only 4 of us. We're dead for sure. But I don't want to die. Gao Chunyu ruthlessly shakes off her hand, furiously saying, Shen Xiaoro, you still have the face to say that? If it weren't for you, we would have arrived at Tianyuan City long ago. How could we still be trapped here at night? Chapter 200. Gao Chunyu is simply driven mad by this woman's shamelessness. He hatefully swings his sleeve and no longer pays attention to her. Mu Yang, on the other hand, was carrying Xiao Bao as they sat on an enormous rock with a leisurely smile on their faces. It was as if they weren't in the depths of a dangerous place, but were on an outing amidst lush mountains and clear waters. However, he would occasionally look into the distance. TSK. This is a stupid rabbit. Don't tell me it's so happy that it doesn't want to come back. Here's what happened. After entering the mountain path of the Wuwang Mountains, the sun had already begun to slowly sink. Shen Xiaoro really hates Bai Chen's gentleness towards Mu Yang and Xiao Bao, as well as his disdain towards her. Moreover, if Mu Yan were to die in the Wuwang Mountains, then wouldn't the treasures that Judge Dai Xiong would deliver tomorrow all belong to the Shen family, which would be his? That's why she got hot-headed and dared to do evil. She actually deceived Mu Yang into entering the Wuwang Mountains. Of course, the truth was that Mu Yang herself wanted to enter this mountain range. Since the sun had set, the fat rabbit in the space had become restless. It had a look that said, "I'm starving to death. It's not easy to get so much food. Let me eat until I'm full." Thus, Mu Yang smoothly pushes the boat and directly enters the Wuwang Mountains. Shen Xiaoro was very pleased with herself. She was sure that Mu Yang wouldn't be able to come out from inside. She didn't expect that after Bai Ichen and Jiao Chunyu learn that Mu Yan is missing in the Wuwang Mountains, they actually insist on going in to look for her. The sky was dark, and the faint roars of beasts could be heard. How could Shen Xiaoro dare to stay on the mountain path alone? She could only follow him in. In the end, Mu Yan found them, but they were also lost in the darkness of the Wuwang Mountains. At this time, Shen Xiaoro really went for wool and came home shorn. She was scared out of her wits. But she didn't think it was her problem at all. On the contrary, she thoroughly hates Mu Yang. Bai Chen suddenly steps forward, standing in front of Mu Yang and Xiao Bao. His gaze, however, was fixed on the nearby shrubbery. "I'll hold the exotic beast back later. You take Xiao Bao and leave first." Mu Yang couldn't help but glance at the young man. She could see through Bai Chen's cultivation. Heaven rank, high rank. To deal with the strange beasts of the Wuwang mountain range, one or two was certainly not a problem. But the problem was that the exotic beasts here almost all appeared in groups. Once they fell into the beast tide, they would die for sure. But even at a time like this, he still wanted her and little treasure to leave first. Just as he was thinking, there was a sudden howl and dozens of red-tailed wolves rushed out, their jaws wide open. "Ah ah ah." Shen Xiaoro screamed and fell to the ground in fright, almost fainting. In the blink of an eye, Bai Chen unsheathed his long sword with a clang. The sword light flickered and danced in the air. In the blink of an eye, blood splattered everywhere, and the wolf's limbs flew everywhere. Even Mu Yang praised him from the side. "His swordsmanship is extraordinary." For the time being, Bai Chen was not in any danger. But Jiao Chunyu will soon be unable to hold on. Because that idiot Shen Xiaoro, after losing her soul in fright, unexpectedly hugs Jiao Chunyu's legs. Several wolves rushed over. Jiao Chunyu could have dodged, but he was held up by Shen Xiaoro. He could only watch as the red-tailed wolf bit down on his head with its bloody mouth. "Elder brother, save me," Jiao Chunyu screams, his eyes already revealing despair. In his heart, he hates Shen Xiaoro to the extreme. Seeing his junior brother in danger, Bai Chen leaps over. His long sword streaks through the air, the sword light is swift and fierce, forcing back most of the red-tailed wolves in the blink of an eye. But there is still one wolf, a fish that escapes the net, and pounces in front of Bai Chen. Its sharp claws ruthlessly claw down, and with a cracking sound, the mask on Bai Chen's face shatters. The sword's momentum is blocked. Valentine's Day theater. A long, long time later. Xiao Bao takes Bailey Liuin's notebook to Jun Shong. He turns to one of the pages and points with his little finger. Not waiting for Jun Shong to react. Xiao Bao already has his hands behind his back, and like a little adult, he leaves. A certain Jun Shong looks down and sees a line of words written in red, February 14th, Valentine's Day. As a qualified lover, you should. Jun Shong looks pensive. At night, Mu Yang comes back. She sees the ground covered in flower petals, the room full of candlelight, and a certain someone wearing silk pajamas, revealing his sexy chest. She is completely dumbfounded. What the hell is this? But before she could figure it out, A certain someone pounces on her like a hungry tiger. After a night, Mu Yang finds out that a certain someone is actually giving her Valentine's Day. Her shimmering eyes cast a sidelong glance. On Valentine's Day, you have to give a present. Where's your present? A certain Jun Shong is extremely proud, and also somewhat wronged. He grabs Mu Yang's little hand and presses it against his chest. In this world, is there a better present than Ben Jun's? Ben Jun has already given himself to you. Yang Yang is still not content. Chapter 201. Under the moonlight, the youth's pitilessly handsome countenance is revealed to the people, a bit pale. Face like the mid-autumn moon, color like the flowers at the dawn of spring. Beautiful and elegant, a peerless gentleman. This Yenwu continent's #1 genius, who is renowned far and wide, actually has a face like that of a good woman, an elegant and otherworldly appearance. It's no wonder that he often wears a mask. Boundless internal force emanates from Bai Ichen's body. The powerful pressure makes the surrounding red-tailed wolves tremble in fear, and their movements can't help but pause. In the next moment, the long sword soars into the sky, splitting into tens of thousands of sword shadows, rustling down. The sword shadows dissipate, leaving only wolf corpses on the ground. The whole place is silent. For a moment, the strange beasts hiding in the dark are also frightened, not daring to move forward one by one. Shun Xiaoro stares at Bai Chen's pitilessly handsome face with an infatuated expression. She steps forward, wanting to hold Bai Chen's hand. Senior brother, thank you for coming to save me. If it weren't for you, Xiaoro would have already died under the claws of the wolves. No matter how senior brother wants me to repay you, Xiaoro will. But, not waiting for Shun Xiaoro to finish her words, Bai Chen has already walked quickly to Muyan and Xiao Bao's side. Are you alright? Muyan looks at his face, her eyes slightly flickering. You're Ziyang sect's peerless genius, Bai Chen? That's right, my senior brother is the famous Bai Chen. Shun Xiaoro takes a step forward, fiercely glaring at Muyan. Now do you know my senior brother's status? Do you think my senior brother would take a fancy to a lowly broken shoe like you? I advise you to stop your wishful thinking. Shun Xiaoro's voice hasn't fallen when she suddenly hears a loud slap. Immediately after, her face hurts, and half of her cheek unexpectedly swells up for no reason. Shun Xiaoro howls like a pig being butchered. But no one pays attention to her. Only Xiao Bao coldly glares at her, withdraws his little hand, and takes Muyan's hand again. Muyan chuckles, grabbing her son's little hand tightly. Her other hand turns over her wrist, and a porcelain bottle appears in her palm. This is the filter of barrier breaking. One bottle can let Earth stage and below break through the bottleneck. As soon as Gao Chenyu sees the filter of barrier breaking, his eyes turn green and he swallows his saliva. Miss Jun, are you willing to sell it to us? I'm willing to pay any price. Muyan casually tosses it, and the porcelain bottle falls into Gao Chenyu's arms. He catches it in a flurry, trembling as he holds the porcelain bottle. Soon after, he looks at Muyan foolishly. Miss Jun, I haven't paid yet. Xiao Bao rolled his eyes. Another idiot. Muyan shakes her head and says, no need, this bottle of filter of barrier breaking is to repay Bai Gongzi for giving me the lamp that day. Gao Chenyu didn't expect that such a big meat pie would fall on his head. He was so happy that his face couldn't be seen. He thanked Mu Yang again and again, then carefully put away the porcelain bottle. What about mine? When Shun Xiaoro sees that Gao Chenyu actually has the filter of barrier breaking, she doesn't even care about the pain on her face. All of a sudden, she rushes in front of Mu Yang. Quick, I also want to break through the bottleneck, quickly give me the filter of barrier breaking. Muyan sneers and looks at her sarcastically. Shun Xiaoro, do you think I would give you drafts? Seeing the chill in Muyan's eyes, Shun Xiaoro shivers. She clenches her teeth and says to herself, if you don't want to buy it, then don't buy it. There are already special drafts being auctioned in the Ghost City. As long as she goes home and asks her mother for money, would she still be afraid that she wouldn't be able to get the filter of barrier breaking? Chapter 202. Right, there's something I forgot to tell you. Muyan unhurriedly says, I've already informed the Ghost City, no matter who buys the drafts that I refine, They absolutely cannot fall into the hands of you or the Su family. Otherwise, if I find out about it once, I'll end the cooperation with Ghost City. Tell me, will the Ghost City still sell you the medicine? Jun Muyan, you slut, I'll kill you. Shen Xiaoro couldn't bear it any longer. She makes threatening gestures and pounces towards Mu Yang. Gao Chenyu suddenly rushes out from the side and knocks Shen Xiaoro into a rolling gourd. He says to Muyan with a fawning smile, Miss Jun, this Shen Xiaoro is so annoying, don't pay attention to him. Our junior sister Lin went missing because of her, causing us to be unable to return to the sect now. Junior sister Lin? Yes, junior sister Lin is senior brother Ichen's fiancé, called Lin Sitong. Gao Chunyu indignantly says, they were childhood sweethearts, and originally they were going to get married next year. Who knew that outside the fog forest, junior sister Lin, who was originally together with Shen Xiaoro, would suddenly disappear? We searched everywhere, but we couldn't find her. Lin Sitong, by Ichen, Sitong. Senior Ichen. Senior martial brother. I originally promised to be his bride, miss. I beg you, help me, give it to Enchantress' hands, tell him not to be sad. Mu Yang's eyes suddenly widen, and she quickly walks over to Bai Chen. With a flick of his wrist, a dark green jade bracelet with red veins on it appeared in his palm. Do you recognize this? Bai Chen's pupils shrank the moment he saw the bracelet. He grabbed Mu Yang's wrist and roared, where did this come from? Where's Sitong? You've seen her, haven't you? Where is she now? The gentleman in front of her, who was originally like a jade, suddenly lost all his gentleness. His eyes were filled with eagerness and desire. Mu Yang remembers the little girl who died in the fog forest. Even if his dantian was shattered and he was riddled with wounds, he was in unbearable pain. The only thing she cared about was whether senior brother Ichen would be sad, whether he would be sad. She sighed softly and said, I'm sorry, she's dead. She died in the fog forest. When I saw her, she was on her last breath. I couldn't save her. Bai Chen's body swayed, and his entire body stiffened. His gentle voice became rough and sharp. You're lying. How could Sitong possibly die? Tell me, where is Sitong right now? I'll go look for her immediately. Gao Chanyu also abruptly comes back to his senses. Junior sister Lin is dead. How is this possible? He looked at Bai Chen in fear. If junior sister Sitong were to die, what would senior brother do? Mu Yang takes a step forward. Ignoring Bai Chen's abnormal behavior, she grabs his hand and shoves the jade bracelet into his palm. She was killed by someone, but before she died, she did not think about revenge, nor did she grieve over her misfortune. She only had one thought in her mind. Bai Chen, don't you want to hear her last words? Bai Chen abruptly lifts his head, his pair of scarlet eyes firmly glaring at Mu Yang. After a long time, he says in a hoarse voice, what did she say? She told me to give this jade bracelet to you, and then she told you that she's sorry, she can't be your bride anymore. However, she hopes that you won't be sad, only if you live well, can she rest in peace. Chapter 203. A pained roar gushes out from Bai Chen's throat. Powerful internal force gushes out from his body, filling the air. Shen Xiaoro and Gao Chenyu turn deathly pale with fright. Even the strange beasts peeping around them retreat one by one because of their instinctive fear. Sitong. He can't hold back his tears any longer, and they fall from the corners of his eyes. You clearly said that you would always be with me. Suddenly, Bai Chen abruptly looks at Muyan, his mind almost collapsing. Who was it? Who killed Sitong? Who did it? Muyan calmly looks at him, spitting out 3 words, Gong Chenxue. Ha. Gao Chenyu sucks in a mouthful of cold air, incredulously saying, Gong Chenxue? Could it be that Jing Cheng country's princess, Heavenly Road sect's outstanding disciple, Gong Chenxue, who entered Heaven stage earlier than senior brother? Also the #1 genius in Yanwu continent today. Muyan slowly nods, and briefly narrates what she knew on that day. Before Lin Sitong died, she only vaguely described what happened. She already couldn't say a single word more. But Xiao Bao had witnessed everything that had happened. The sacred beast egg. Bai Ichen grits his teeth, enunciating each word. That woman, for the sake of a sacred beast egg, she crushed Sitong's dantian. Muyan's expression is gloomy, and she doesn't speak. Xiao Bao suddenly opens his mouth. That sister said that she wanted to give the sacred beast egg to a Chen brother, and that it couldn't be given to a bad woman. Then, the bad woman killed her. Bai Chen's hands tightly clench into fists, his body trembling violently. Blood drips down from the gaps of his fingers. Senior brother, since senior sister Lin is already dead, don't think about her anymore. That's her fate. You will definitely meet someone better in the future. Shun Xiao had just been kicked out by Jiao Chunyu, and she only crawls back after a long time of dizziness. She just happens to hear the news of Lin Sitong's death, and she immediately goes wild with joy. Lin Sitong is dead, but doesn't that mean that Ichen brother is hers? But before she could finish speaking, she suddenly meets Bai Ichen's bloodthirsty eyes. A gentleman as gentle as jade, as elegant as an immortal. At this very moment, he's like a mad beast. She would be torn apart at any moment. Shun Xiaoru was so scared that she stumbled and fell to the ground, unable to say another word. Bai Ichen looks at Muyan. Please tell me, where is Sitong buried? Misty Forest. Hearing this answer, Bai Ichen did not even ask where he was in the dense fog forest. He turned around and left. What are you planning to do? Mu Yang suddenly called out to him. Bai Ichen stopped in his tracks and did not reply. Muyan slowly says, I advise you, it's best not to act blindly without thinking. With your strength, you're not her match. Not only because of Gong Qianshua's cultivation, but also because of the power of Tiandao sect and Jingcheng country. Moreover, only a few people knew how much power Gong Qianshua had kept by her side. With just Bai Ichen and the Purple Sun sect, there was absolutely no way they could contend against them. Bai Ichen spun around fiercely. His eyes were bloodshot and filled with madness. I don't care who she is or what kind of power she has. All I know is that she killed Sitong. Even if I die a horrible death, I will make her pay with her blood. In the end, Bai Ichen did not leave right away. That's because the nights in the Wuwang Mountains are too dangerous. He can't abandon his junior brother, Muyan, and Xiao Bao. However, the strange thing is that, for some unknown reason, the strange beasts of the Wuwang Mountains did not come out again in the latter half of the night. Chapter 204. The area therein has simply become a vacuum zone. No wild beast dares to approach. Occasionally, a bird carelessly falls, and immediately cries out in alarm, desperately flapping its wings to escape. Jiao Chunyu and Shen Xiao both think that this is Bai Ichen's grief and anger, and the pressure he unconsciously emits to scare away the strange beasts. Only Xiao Bao and Mu Yang look down at the white-furred rabbit that's lying on its stomach, snoring loudly. After this night, the rabbit has become a whole circle fatter. But no one noticed that all the strange beasts in the Wuwang Mountains began to disappear without a trace after the fat rabbit returned. As soon as the sky brightens and the line of sight becomes clear, everyone quickly returns to the mountain road. Yang Haotian and Feng Haitang are waiting in front of the carriage. Seeing Mu Yang and Xiao Bao arrive, the two don't look anxious or nervous. They just respectfully salute and open the curtain. Mu Yang doesn't leave immediately, but looks at Bai Ichen instead. After a night of settling, Bai Ichen's expression has already calmed down. Only the rims of his eyes are still slightly red. But Mu Yang doesn't know whether it's calmness or insanity that has settled down. Bai Ichen steps forward and respectfully bows towards Mu Yang. Many thanks to Miss Jun and the little Gongzi for helping Sitong. I, Bai Ichen, may not be able to repay this great kindness in this life, but I hope that in the next life. Call me Mu Yang. This is my son, Xiao Bao. Mu Yang says softly, in a sense, I also owe Lin Sitong a favor. So, you don't have to repay me. If Lin Sitong hadn't contracted the sacred beast egg, Mu Yang would have been a step too late, and Gong Qianshua would have gotten the sacred beast. But Lin Sitong also died a violent death because of her rebirth. This is what she owes Bai Ichen and Lin Sitong. Mu Yang stares at Bai Ichen and softens her voice. Gong Qianshua and I have an irreconcilable enmity. One day, I will consign her to eternal damnation. Bai Ichen, are you willing to wait? Bai Chen stares blankly at first, then his eyes reveal a grateful expression. But he still shakes his head. There's not a trace of hesitation in his eyes, even a trace of irrevocable determination. Mu Yang, thank you for your kindness. However, Sitong is my fiancée, and she has been murdered. I don't care who caused her death, I must take revenge myself. Mu Yang knows that Bai Chen has already made up his mind. No one could change it. She softly sighs again, and throws out a bottle of draft. Drink it at the most critical juncture, perhaps it can give you a slim chance of survival. If you need my help, go to the Ghost City to find Shen Tu. Even if you want to take revenge, you can only do so with your life intact. Uncle Rabbit Lantern. Xiaobao stepped forward, opened his hand, and placed a black bead in Bai Chen's palm. This is for you from Rabbit. Bai Chen was taken aback. He took the black bead, but he couldn't tell what was so special about it. Also, what did the rabbit mean by giving it to him? Glancing at the fat rabbit in Xiaobao's arms, he saw that it had turned over, flicked its paws, and slept soundly. However, since it's Xiaobao's kind intentions, Bai Chen shows a rare smile. He reaches out and gently strokes Xiaobao's head. Sitong said that after we get married, she will give me a boy and a girl. If, maybe our children will be as cute as Xiaobao. Chapter 205. However, this wish, he will never be able to realize it in this lifetime. His Sitong has left him forever. Xiaobao's beautiful blue eyes flash, and he stretches out his little hand to wipe away the tears on Bai Chen's face. His childish voice isn't cold, but has a hint of softness. Uncle, don't be sad, that sister said. She's most afraid that senior brother will be sad. Bai Chen abruptly straightens up, and no longer lingers, he quickly leaves. Gao Chenyu stares blankly, and without thinking, he quickly follows. Senior brother, wait for me. Senior brother, why are you leaving? Shen Xiaoro still hasn't reacted. Seeing that Bai Chen has left, she anxiously shouts, Senior brother, aren't you going to go back to Chenyuan City with me to see my mother? But the answer she gets is Bai Chen walking further and further away, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Shen Xiaoro fiercely stomps her feet, gnashing her teeth. Lin Sitong, that slut, even in death, she still wants to forcibly occupy my senior brother. Serves you right to die without a complete corpse, dying in a foreign land. However, thinking that Lin Sitong is already dead, even if senior brother misses her now. After a long time, he will naturally forget her. At that time, she will still be able to forcibly occupy senior brother. Thinking of this, Shen Xiaoro's mood finally calms down a little. But she still fiercely glares at Muyan. Jun Muyan, if it weren't for your big mouth, senior brother wouldn't have left. Who told you to mention that little slut Lin Sitong? Muyan's lips curl up, but the smile doesn't reach her eyes. You can go with Bai Chen and the others. Shen Xiaoro's expression immediately stagnates, and she lets out a hollow laugh. Of course, I have to send you home first, little sister Muyan. Father and mother miss you very much. All right, don't delay any longer, let's hurry up, we'll reach Chenyuan City soon. As soon as she turns around, Shen Xiaoro's face shows a malicious expression. Jun Muyan, how can I leave if I don't go back to Chenyuan City and send you into the fire pit? The Wuwang Mountains won't trap you to death, but when you enter the fire pit, the things that Ghost City gives you will still be mine. Muyan looks at her back as she quickly boards the carriage. Her eyes narrow, and her face shows a mocking smile. Close to noon, Muyan and her party finally enter Chenyuan City. But before going to the Shen family, Muyan tells Yang Haotian and Feng Haitang not to travel with her. You guys wait here for Magistrate Dai to deliver the gift, and give him the special draft that I've just refined. After that, there is no need for you to come to the Shen residence. Go directly to the city and buy a courtyard for me. Feng Haitang glanced at Shen Xiaoro, who was not far away. If we don't follow Miss, what if the Shen family's people bully Miss? Muyan chuckles, don't worry, a mere Su Yuexiang, I don't care. Su Yuexiang is the current matriarch of the Shen family and also Shen Xiaoro's mother. Feng Haitang still wanted to say something, but was pulled away by Yang Haotian. Feng Haitang only knows that Mu Yang is very strong, but she doesn't know to what extent. But who else could understand Muyan's strength better than Yang Haotian? Feng Haitang's small hand was held in Yang Haotian's broad and rough palm. Her mind was shaken, and she swallowed back all the words she wanted to say. Just like that, she obediently lets him hold her hand, and obediently lowers her head as she follows behind him, heading towards the center of the city. Her beautiful face, which was usually as cold as ice, had a rare blush on it. Chapter 206. It's clear that the two have feelings for each other, but she doesn't know what Yang Haotian, this blockhead, is tangled up about. Don't wait until it's too late for regret. Why did you drive away your 2 servants? Shen Xiaoro asks in surprise when she sees Yang Haotian and Feng Haitang leave. Mu Yang doesn't leave, directly treating her as heir. Shen Xiaoro's face distorts in anger, but she soon whispers, "Slut, with that big guy around, I wouldn't dare to touch you easily. Now, you're courting death, driving away the people who can protect you. Your good days are over." Turning around, she immediately smiles. Okay, we've been delayed for a long time, let's hurry back to the Shen family. Tianyuan City, Shen family. Shen Xiaoro and Mu Yang's carriage has just stopped at the gate. The guards on both sides see Shen Xiaoro and immediately run over excitedly. "Eldest miss, you're back. If you didn't come back, the Lu family would tear down our Shen family." Shen Xiaoro immediately shivers when she hears this, and her face turns pale. Subconsciously, she wants to run. But when she turns around and sees Mu Yang standing behind her, her face immediately changes from fear to joy. She stops and looks at the anxious guard. If the Lu family comes, then so be it. What's there to be afraid of? But the Lu family came. The guard looks at her and hesitates. Moreover, the Lu family came almost every day these days. "Madam can't stand it anymore." "Okay, I got it." Shen Xiaoro says impatiently, "Mind your own business, don't talk too much." She turns to face Mu Yang, revealing a smile. "Little sister Mu Yang, let's go in quickly. I think mother will be very happy to see you." "Really? I miss her very much too." Mu Yang lifts her eyelids, holding Xiaobao's hand, and slowly follows behind her. The direct culprits of the previous incident have all been killed by her. However, is it really only the Su family who conspired to kill her? Hehe, not necessarily, right? In her previous life, she didn't come to settle accounts with them for the sake of her adoptive father and brother. But in this life, since they came to her door, then she will not let go of anyone who tried to frame her and Xiao Bao. The front hall of the Shen family was filled with many people. "Su Yuexiang, regarding this marriage, you must give me an explanation today." A rotund woman slammed her fat palm on the table and angrily shouted. The force of the slap was so great that the teacups on the table made a clanging sound. Sitting in the seat of honor, Su Yuexiang's beautiful face was filled with panic and grievance, as if she had been greatly bullied. Wiping her tears with a handkerchief, she said, "Patriarch Lu, Madam Lu, this matter is really a misunderstanding. It can't be counted. I think it's better to cancel this engagement." "Cancel? What kind of joke is this?" When Madam Lu heard this, she became even angrier. She smashed the teacup in her hand on the ground and screamed, "Su Yuexiang, I'm telling you, there's no way you can cancel this marriage. Even if your daughter dies, she must marry into my Lu family." Sob, sob, sob. I'm scared. I'm scared." Madam Lu's fury makes the person next to her tremble and sob. Chapter 207. That man's body is twice as big as Madam Lu's. Madam Lu is already considered obese, but this man's flesh is completely horizontal. When he sits on the chair, the flesh on his waist bulges out, directly hanging down to the sides. Looking at his appearance, he's clearly an adult in his 20s, but his face is silly. Snot flows down from his nose from time to time, falling into his mouth. He smacks his lips and swallows it down. Madam Lu is fierce towards Su Yuexiang, but when she sees this fatty, her face immediately changes. "Oh, Chunksai, be good, mother is marrying you a wife. Wait until you get married, then you can hug your wife to sleep." When Lu Chunksai hears this, he immediately turns crying into joy, clapping his fat hands and shouting, "Good, good. Marrying a wife. Stripping her naked and sleeping, Chunksai likes it." Su Yuexiang only feels nauseous when she hears this. She wants her pampered daughter to marry this kind of fool. Simply a dream. She holds back her anger and disgust, gritting her teeth and saying, Madam Lu, don't go too far. That engagement is just a child's play, it simply doesn't count. What's more, my daughter is now Ziyangzong's foundation, and her future husband is Yanwu Continent's famous Bai Chen. I advise you to give up on this idea. My Shen family will not marry our daughter to a. Su Yuexiang still hasn't finished her words. She only hears a loud bang. It's the burly man sitting on the left, slamming his palm on the table. Compared to Madame Lu's palm, which only shook the teacups, this man's palm directly caused a crack to appear on the table. And the hall is also filled with a terrible pressure. Madam Shen, are you saying that my Lu family's son isn't worthy of your Shen family's daughter? Su Yuexiang looks at the fiendish Lu family's master, and suddenly shivers. Her heart is simply regretting to the point that her intestines turn green. At that time, in order to get the Lu family's help, she promised to become in-laws with them. Su Yuexiang's original plan was very good. She wanted to directly pass off that displeasing little goblin as Shen family's daughter, and marry that fool of the Lu family. But she didn't expect that little goblin to be so unyielding. Before she could marry him, she committed suicide. Now, this marriage had actually fallen into the hands of her precious daughter. Su Yuexiang forced out a smile and said, Patriarch Lu, please calm down. I didn't mean it that way. But. She didn't finish her sentence. A high-pitched female voice came from outside, Uncle Lu, don't worry. My mother didn't mean that. Since this marriage was agreed to by my mother, she will naturally keep her promise. As he spoke, Shen Xiao's figure leisurely walked over with an arrogant smile on her face. When Su Yuexiang saw her daughter, she was delighted. When he heard Shen Xiao's words, his expression changed. You, Shen Xiaoru smiled faintly and said meaningfully, Mother, don't worry. Isn't the Lu family just going to marry a daughter of the Shen family? We'll just marry one of them. Madame Lu and Patriarch Lu, on the other hand, happily said, so to say, Xiao, you are planning to marry into our Lu family and become our Chengcai's daughter-in-law? As soon as Lu Chengcai saw Shen Xiao, his saliva flowed even more fiercely. His plump body straightened up and pounced towards Shen Xiao. Wife, beautiful wife. Let's strip naked and sleep. Chapter 208. Scram, damn fatty. She pushed him away heavily, using her profound energy. Lu Chengcai immediately fell to the ground and fell on his face, crying loudly. Patriarch Lu and Madame Lu's complexions instantly became gloomy. Shen Xiao, what do you mean by this? Shen Xiao resisted the nausea and hurriedly went forward to help Lu Chengcai up. Only then did he pull out a smile and say, Lu family head, Madame Lu, please don't misunderstand. My Shen family has an engagement with your Lu family, but there's no stipulation on which daughter is to be married over, right? I'm not the only daughter in the Shen family. Madame Lu was startled. What do you mean? A strange smile appeared on Shen Xiao's face. Lifting the curtain, she let Madame Lu and the rest look outside. In a pavilion in the courtyard, a girl dressed in white was leaning against the railing. Her black hair cascaded down like a waterfall, and her skin was as smooth as snow. She was so beautiful that she didn't seem like a mortal. What was even more shocking was her temperament. His posture was clearly languid and leisurely, but there was a kind of otherworldly and dignified aura in his every movement. It was as if the Empyrean fairy from the 9 heavens had fallen into the mortal world. Patriarch Lu's eyes widened as he gulped down a mouthful of saliva. Lu Chengcai's saliva dripped down like rain. Beauty. Fairy. Sister fairy. I want this. Chengcai wants sister fairy. I don't want this ugly monster. When Shen Xiao heard this, her nose almost became crooked from anger. This fool actually dared to call her ugly? However, thinking of being able to marry Muyan to this disgusting fool, Shen Xiao's anger subsided again. She smiled sinisterly and said, how about it? Are Patriarch Lu and Madame Lu satisfied with this future wife? Yes. Very satisfied. Family head Lu nodded his head repeatedly. Seeing this, Madame Lu's face contorted. No. Just because you say she's a daughter of the Shen family, she's a daughter of the Shen family? What if you get a fake to fool my Lu family? Before Shen Xiao could say anything, Lu Chengcai was already indignant. He sat down on the ground and cried loudly, I want fairy sister, I want fairy sister. I don't want this ugly monster. Good. Good. Then marry this one. Marry this. As long as Chengcai likes it, it's fine. How could Madame Lu win against her son? She was immediately defeated. At this moment, Shen Xiaoru's face finally revealed a complacent smile. Since that's the case, why don't we set the wedding date as soon as possible? I think we should set it for 7 days from now. Men and women of Jianghu, this is an urgent matter. There's no need for 3 matchmakers or 6 betrothal gifts. The Lu family can just send a bridal sedan chair to take her away. When the Lu family heard that they could gain such a big advantage, how could they not be happy? Shen Xiao continued, but you also know that my fairy-like sister would definitely not be willing to marry young Master Lu. Even if it's the orders of our parents or the words of a matchmaker, if she resists with all her might, my mother and I can't do anything to her. Ha ha ha. You don't have to worry about this. Patriarch Lu patted his chest loudly, but his eyes revealed a ruthless glint. There's no one that my Lu family can't get if we want them. If a little girl wants to resist, she'll have to see if she can get out of my grasp first. While speaking, the Lu family's patriarch emitted an earth tear pressure, causing Shen Xiao's complexion to change, and she retreated several steps. Chapter 209. Is that person really Zhun Muyan? Su Yuexiang's voice abruptly interjects. Shen Xiao turns around and nods. Yes, mother, that slut Zhun Muyan actually didn't die. I suspect that the deaths of my aunt and cousin are related to this slut. Mother, I made that slut suffer a fate worse than death. It can be considered as revenge for aunt, cousin brother, and cousin sister. Su Yuexiang curled her lips in disdain, then frowned slightly. Su Yuexiang had no feelings for Su Zhiyong's family. The reason was that Su Zhiyong's team was too useless. His older brother, Su Dinggan, was already in his 40s, but he was only in the middle of the yellow class. Su Zhiyong, on the other hand, hadn't even reached the yellow class before he died. He was only at the beginning of ancient martial arts. Back then, they were asked to deal with Muyan because they were the easiest to order around, and no one would notice. If this kind of trash died, then so be it. She, Su Yuexiang, would not care about him. But, how could Zhun Muyan come back alive? In Su Yuexiang's mind, she can't help but recall the group of black-clothed men who asked her about Zhun Muyan's background and the bloodline of the unborn child in her belly. That group of black-clothed men was so powerful that it made people shudder. Weren't those people going to kill Muyan? How could he allow this woman to live? Mother, what's wrong? Don't tell me you don't agree to let that slut marry into the Shen family instead of me. Shen Xiao's voice rang out, bringing Su Yuexiang back to her senses. Agree, of course I agree. You've really grown up and can share your mother's worries. Hee hee. Zhun Muyan was pregnant out of wedlock at that time, and had already lost her chastity. She's a fickle slut, and the Lu family can carry her in a sedan chair. She should be laughing up her sleeve. However, during this period of time, we must find someone to keep a close eye on her. We must not let her run away before the Lu family comes to carry her away. In the courtyard, Muyan peels a grape and sends it to Xiao Bao's mouth. She chuckles softly. Baby, don't be so serious. If you frown too much, you'll become a little old man. Xiao Bao shuddered. That annoying lecher immediately appeared in his mind. Was he going to become a little old man like that lecher? No way. Xiao Bao puffed out his cheeks and slightly arched his eyebrows, meaning that he had laughed. However, this little adult appearance makes Muyan convulse with laughter. When he was done laughing, he asked, Baby, why are you so angry? Little Bao's expression suddenly turned grim. Because they want to scheme against mother. Just now, he had just casually walked around the house and circulated his Shen Qi to the ear acupuncture point. All the sounds in the room were transmitted into his ears. Those scoundrels wanted to scheme against his mother, so he wouldn't let those scoundrels succeed. Xiao Bao clenched his small fists. Xiao Bao will protect mother. Mu Yang looks at the room that Shen Xiaoro entered with a smile that isn't a smile. Shen Xiaoro asked her to wait here for a while. She waited here and didn't go in. But that didn't mean she didn't know what was happening inside. Mu Yang withdraws her gaze, picks up Xiao Bao and kisses him on the cheek. Don't worry about those boring things. Doesn't Xiao Bao want to go with Nyang Qin to see the place where Nyang Qin grew up? Xiao Bao immediately nods. Although there's no expression on his little face, his pair of blue eyes are sparkling. There used to be a swing here. Father personally made it for me. Chapter 210. The first gift my big brother gave me was personally carved by him using the stones here. Xiao Bao couldn't help but raise his head and look at Muyan. Does Nyang Qin have a father? Does Nyang Qin have a brother? Yes. Although we are not related by blood, they used to be my most important family. But Muyan stares blankly, then lowers her head and smiles. Xiao Bao has to call Nyang Qin's father and brother grandpa and uncle, understand? Xiao Bao nods, not really understanding. Muyan's eyes reveal a touch of remembrance. She has lived in the Shen family for more than 10 years. Everything about her childhood is already blurred, and she can't remember it. Her memories and joy began with the Shen family. However, her pain also began with the Shen family. When her adoptive father brought her back to the Shen family, the mistress of the Shen family was not Su Yuexiang, but an extremely gentle and kind woman, Seng Xiuying. Her brother, Shen Jinglin, was Seng Xiuying's biological son. During the time when Seng Xiuying was alive, Muyan was very happy and very warm. However, the good times didn't last long. When Seng Xiuying was pregnant for several months, Su Yuexiang came to the door with the already 6-year-old Shen Xiaoro. She claimed that Shen Xiaoro was the Shen father's flesh and blood. Seng Xiuying questioned the Shen father, but he was unable to answer. In the end, he could only say 4 words: drunkenness. Seng Xiuying received such a blow, her mind was greatly shaken, and in the end, 2 lives were lost. However, the Shen father was pressured by the Su family, and had no choice but to marry Su Yuexiang. From then on, the good days of Muyan and her brother came to an end. Su Yuexiang even took advantage of the time when the Shen father and brother went out to gain experience, and directly sent her to the Su family. So that she was drugged, and mistakenly entered the forbidden area, so that she was secretly pregnant, and the fetus in her belly was coveted. So that in her past life, Muyan closes her eyes. It's impossible to say that she doesn't blame the Shen father and the Shen family. However, the Shen father still has the grace of raising her for more than 10 years. What's more, the Shen family still has her brother, the brother who was the best to her since she was young. She slowly opens her eyes, and all her emotions have already been restrained. But the moment she opens her eyes, she sees a tall man on crutches, limping in through the door and heading towards the front hall. However, before he could enter the corridor, he was stopped by a person who looked like a steward. Go, go, go. Do you think you can come in here? Hurry up and get lost. Mu Yang originally thought that this lame man was a servant of the mansion. Go away, I want to see Su Yuexiang. However, when the man opened his mouth, Mu Yang's eyes suddenly widened. This is Big Brother's voice. Mu Yang gazes at it with rapt attention. The man in front of him was a young man in his 20s, but there was a deep scar on his face, and he looked extremely haggard. Most importantly, there wasn't even a trace of profound energy fluctuation on his body, and the space between his brows was even suffused with a wisp of heavy aura of death. But this person's brows, eyes, and figure were clearly her big brother, Shen Jinglin, the eldest young master of the Shen family with boundless prospects. When Mu Yang last saw Shen Jinglin, he was already at the peak of the yellow stage. But now, Shen Jinglin was already a cripple who did not know martial arts at all. For a moment, Mu Yang stares blankly at that figure, as if it was a lifetime ago, and bursts of sorrow welled up in her heart. Xiao Bao feels Mu Yang's emotions, and gently squeezes her hand. Nyang Qin, who is he? Chapter 211. The child's tender voice pulls Muyan back from her thoughts. She was about to answer when she saw Shen Jinglin being ruthlessly pushed by the steward. Due to the inconvenience of his legs, He fell to the ground and dropped his crutch a few meters away. His wretched appearance caused the manager and the surrounding attendants to burst into laughter. "Is madam's name something a piece of trash like you can call out?" The steward took a few steps forward and mocked, "You don't know what's good for you. No wonder someone broke one of your legs. Now, I think you don't even want your other leg." As he spoke, he lifted his foot to step on Shen Jinglin's knee. However, just as he lifted his foot, he heard a whooshing sound. Immediately after, a cracking sound came from the knee on which he was standing, as well as a piercing pain. "Ah, it hurts. It hurts so much." The steward howled like a pig being slaughtered and fell to the ground. Everyone was shocked to find that his kneecap was completely broken, and his entire leg was hanging limply. In this way, he was destined to become a cripple even more than Shen Jinglin. There was no hope. In the midst of everyone's shock, they saw a young girl as beautiful as a fairy walk forward, holding the hand of a little boy carved from jade. The young girl slowly crouched down in front of Shen Jinglin and softly called out, "Big brother." Shen Jinglin's expression was somewhat absent-minded, his eyes also somewhat blurred. After a long while, he finally focused his attention on this girl who was so beautiful that she didn't seem like a mortal. "What did you call me?" Muyan couldn't bear it anymore. Her eyes reddened and her voice became hoarse. "Brother, I'm sorry, Yang Yang came back late." She did not know what kind of twist history had taken. In her previous life, although her brother would die during the training a year later, before that, he had always been in high spirits, and his cultivation had already reached the peak of the profound stage. Muyan had thought about changing the outcome of her brother's death, but because of her complicated feelings towards the Shen father, she has always been hesitant and unwilling to come back. But she didn't expect that her brother in this life was actually in such a miserable state. In the Shen family, Shen Jinglin is the person who treats Muyan the best. As long as Muyan is bullied, no matter who is right or wrong, Shen Jinglin will stand up for her. At this moment, Mu Yang almost hates herself. Why couldn't he come back earlier? After hearing Mu Yang's answer, Shen Jinglin's pupils contract and enlarge a little. His breathing became heavy, and his body trembled slightly. A pair of eyes stare unwaveringly at Mu Yan's face, searching inch by inch, as if to find a familiar trace on her face. "Yang Yang, you are Yang Yang. Guards, arrest this villain for me." The steward, who had one of his legs crippled, finally awakes from the pain. He points at Muyan and roars. As if awakened from a dream, the manservants quickly rush over and surround Muyan and the other two. Shen Jinglin abruptly stood up, shielding Mu Yang and Xiao Bao behind him. "What do you want to do? This is Shen family's second miss, still not withdrawing for me." Without the support of crutches, his body swayed as if he would fall at any time. However, his heart is exceptionally determined to protect Muyan. It was just like how her brother had stood in front of her countless times. But Shen Jinglin's scolding, not only did it not make the Shen family's guards afraid, instead each and every one of them laughed heartily. Chapter 212. Shaming after shaming, Shen Jinglin's eyes flash with shame, indignation, and pain. But he still straightens his back, refusing to retreat even half a step. Mu Yang gently pats his shoulder, softly saying, "Brother, don't worry, leave it to me." Saying that, she walks past Shen Jinglin and slowly steps forward. "What are you?" Slap. 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 Before these manservants could react, they feel a figure flash before their eyes. Immediately after, their faces feel a burst of burning pain. In the blink of an eye, everyone has been slapped in the face. Mu Yang gently brushes her clothes, raising her eyes to look at everyone present. "Your mouth is so smelly, can't you speak properly? Then I'll teach you how to speak." As soon as her voice falls, those manservants suddenly seem to be bewitched. They raise their hands and slap their own faces again and again. After a while, every manservant's face is swollen like a pig's head. But each and every one of them is slapping very happily. Every time they slap themselves, they reveal a comfortable and intoxicated expression. This scene is really unspeakably strange. The steward doesn't even care about the pain of his broken kneecap, trembling as he points at Mu Yang. You, who are you? Do you know where this place is? Offending our master, you won't have a good end." Mu Yang sneers, takes a step forward, and raises her foot to kick. The steward screams again, flying out like a kite with a broken string. With a bang, he crashes through the wooden door, falling straight into the Shen family's front hall. Want to know who I am? I think it's better to let your master tell you. In the front hall, Su Yuexiang and Shen Xiaoro, who are in the middle of a conspiracy, are alarmed. They see the steward covered in blood, his leg broken, and he has already fainted. Then they look at Mu Yang, who is leisurely walking in holding Xiao Bao's hand, and they can't help but shiver. An instinctive fear rises from the bottom of their hearts. Mu Yang chuckles. She first helps Shen Jinglin to sit down, then she leisurely holds Xiao Bao and casually sits down. Aunt Su, it's been a long time. Su Yuexiang stares blankly for a while, then her expression hardens. Mu Yang, what are you doing? You haven't been back for a few years, and the moment you return, you show off in front of me. Is this how a daughter should behave? Why aren't you kneeling down? Mu Yang raised her head and sneered. Su Yuexiang, who do you think you are? You want me to kneel to you? Do you think you're worthy? Su Yuexiang was completely stunned. She never thought that the previously cowardly and obedient Jun Muyan, after returning 5 years later, he had actually become so strong. Not only did he directly hit her people, he even dared to speak ill of her. Rebel, rebel. Men, capture her for me. Soon, a large group of people rushed into the house. It was the group of servants who had beaten his face into a pig's head. Seeing their appearance, Mu Yang couldn't help but burst out laughing. What? Do you think you haven't slapped me enough and want to try again? As soon as these words came out, the manservants all retreated a few steps in horror as if they had seen an evil spirit. Afterwards, no matter how much Su Yuexiang urged them, no matter how Shen Xiaoro cursed them, they all cowered, not daring to step forward. Mu Yang clicked her tongue and shook her head, sighing, Aunt Su, why do you have to do this? We haven't seen each other for a long time. Don't tell me Aunt Su doesn't want to reminisce with me. Chapter 213. When she turns around to face Muyan again, there's already a gentle and kind smile hanging on her face. It's as if that fiendish fiend just now, the one yelling to kill Muyan, wasn't her. Su Yuexiang's face alternated between green and white. After a long while, she gritted her teeth and ordered the manservant and the unconscious steward to leave. When she turns around to face Muyan again, there's already a gentle and kind smile hanging on her face. It's as if that fiendish fiend just now, the one yelling to kill Muyan, wasn't her. Mu Yang, where have you been all these years? Why didn't he come home? Aunt Su misses you a lot. Saying that, he glanced at Xiao Bao beside Mu Yang. A mocking smile flashes through his eyes, but his face is full of worry as he says, Oh my, this is the seed that you and that wild man from who knows where, gave birth to. You knew that you were pregnant before marriage. Why didn't you abort the child and give birth to it? Do you know how much damage it would do to our Shen family's reputation if word got out that you gave birth to a child at such a young age? Shen Xiaoro sneered and said, Mother, don't worry. Some people are very shameless. Even if they have a child out of wedlock and don't even know who the father is, they can still shamelessly hook up with men everywhere. If you think she'll be embarrassed, then you're wrong. Don't talk nonsense and slander Yang Yang. Shen Jinglin couldn't listen anymore. His eyes are red, and he bellows, Don't think that I don't know that back then, Yang Yang was all because of you mother and daughter. Shen Xiaoro raises her eyebrows. What a joke. She, Jun Muyan, wants to get together with a wild man. What does that have to do with us? All right. It's all in the past. Su Yuexiang smiles and comes out to smooth things over. She looks at Muyan with a kind face. Muyan, don't worry, you're my daughter after all. Even if you have a burden and your reputation is ruined, Aunt Su will find a way to find a good marriage for you. Mu Yang makes an O sound, and says meaningfully, Then I'll have to trouble Aunt Su. Yang Yang, tell me what you need, and I'll get it for you. Clothes, bedding, and... Shen Jinglin walks around Muyan's room on crutches. Mu Yang looked at his busy appearance and did not stop him. Instead, the corners of her lips curled up, revealing a smile. Because, when they reunited, Shen Jinglin's eyes had a hint of determination to die. When he was busy with himself, it almost disappeared. When he's done, Muyan pulls Xiaobao over and says, "Brother, look, this is my son Xiaobao, his name is Jun Morchen. Xiaobao, call me uncle." Xiaobao tilted his little head and sized up the person in front of him. But when he heard Muyan's words, he immediately obediently called out, "Uncle." Although she was expressionless, her small face was too cute. Shen Jinglin was overjoyed. He reached out to touch Xiaobao's face, but then withdrew his hand awkwardly. "Good, good. Xiaobao has already grown up, and my nephew looks so much like you, Yang Yang." He reached into his washed clothes and searched for a long time, but he couldn't find anything. "I'm sorry, Xiaobao. Uncle can't even give you a greeting gift." Chapter 214. The childish words spoken in a crisp, childish voice make the rims of Shen Jinglin's eyes redden in an instant. "Xiaobao is good, Xiaobao is really good. In the blink of an eye, you've grown so big. Uncle couldn't see you born, nor could he see you grow up." Shen Jinglin turns his back, wiping away the tears that have welled up in his eyes. "Big brother, let me see your leg." Hearing that, Shen Jinglin shakes his head again and again. Don't look, Big brother's leg doesn't look good." Muyan stares at him without blinking. Shen Jinglin sits down dejectedly, compromising. Ever since he was a child, he couldn't refuse any of his sister's requests. Muyan carefully rolls up the trouser leg of his broken leg. When she sees that twisted and atrophied calf with blue veins all over it, Muyan's breathing suddenly stagnates. Shen Jinglin says awkwardly, "I said it doesn't look good, don't look, my leg can't be cured, it's already crippled, even the best doctor in Tianyuan City can't cure it." Muyan endures the pain in her heart and asks in a low voice, "How did it break?" "I accidentally hurt it when I was training." "I don't think so, right?" Muyan raises her head, her eyes cold. This bone was clearly broken by someone. Moreover, it was broken several times in a row. The gap on the leg's tendons was clearly cut by a sharp blade. Muyan stares unblinkingly at Shen Jinglin's eyes. "Brother, tell me, how did you train to injure yourself like this?" Shen Jinglin abruptly turns his head, avoiding Muyan's eyes. But his hands are tightly clenched into fists. "Yang Yang, don't ask, you can't take care of this matter. Big brother is begging you, don't look into it anymore." The room is silent. Even Xiaobao can feel that his mother's mood is very bad. Someone is bound to be unlucky. Muyan takes a deep breath, and only after a long while does she manage to suppress her emotions. "Okay, I can ignore this matter for the time being. But I'll take care of your legs from now on. I'll treat it." Shen Jinglin smiles bitterly. "Yang Yang, don't be stubborn. Don't say that you haven't studied medicine, even if you had, you still can't cure my leg. Even the best doctor in Tianyuan City said that it was hopeless. Brother, just say it, do you want me to treat you or not?" Mu Yang didn't care what Shen Jinglin said and went straight to the point. Shen Jinglin saw his little sister's attitude of "if you don't agree, I'll get angry." There was no more conflict. Wasn't it just a leg? They were all crippled anyway. So what if he treated his younger sister as a guinea pig? All right, I'll let you treat me, but if you can't cure it, don't cry. It's not your fault, okay? Shen Jinglin's impression of Mu Yang is still that of 5 years ago. That cute girl who was obedient, gentle, and occasionally had a little temper, but was also incomparably kind and cute. But he didn't know. The Mu Yang standing in front of her is already a devil that has returned from hell. Shen Jinglin's leg could not be cured in a day or two. Mu Yang needs a detailed diagnosis in order to make a perfect medical plan. Furthermore, he did not have enough medicinal herbs for the treatment. Even if she is unwilling, Muyan can only let go of this idea first. Then, she asked about another matter. "Brother, I heard that father is sick. How is father now? Why won't Su Yuexiang let me see father?" After the conversation, Mu Yang proposed to visit her father. She had originally heard from Shen Xiaro that the Shen father was sick, so she came. Chapter 215. Shen Jinglin's expression changes, then he guiltily avoids Muyan's line of sight. Father is fine, he's recuperating right now and is not suitable to meet guests. You've just returned home, you should rest for a few days first, then go see father. Muyan frowns. Brother, are you hiding something from me? Shen Jinglin promptly shakes his head. No, no. Yang Yang, big brother only wants you to protect yourself and live happily. Don't be like brother. Looking at Shen Jinglin's departing back, Muyan's expression becomes more and more suspicious. When she just asked about her father's situation, she felt that Shen Jinglin's lethargic will to die come back. What's going on? Nyang Qin, Xiao Bao can go to the Shun Fu at night. Xiao Bao looks up. A little bean sprout less than a meter tall, with a taut little face, says that he wants to go to the Shun Fu at night. Mu Yang burst out laughing in a very unkind manner. Xiao Bao is immediately depressed. Turning his back, he puffs his cheeks and ignores Muyan. Muyan quickly carries him back, and coaxes her darling for a while, making Xiao Bao's resentment disappear. But Xiao Bao still feels indignant. Nyang Qin still treats him as a child after all. It would be great if Xiao Bao could be as powerful as that lecher. Murmuring words overflow from Xiao Bao's mouth, making Muyan stare blankly. Lecher. Di Mingju. Unknowingly, she hasn't seen this man for almost a month. From now on, they won't meet again, right? Shoshen Continent, Polar Domain. Reporting to Jun Shong, Tianyi Men's Lung Qingwan Fairy requests an audience. Di Mingju doesn't raise his head, coldly saying, "No." The people below respectfully respond, "As you command." Saying that, he turns around to go out. Wait a minute. There's an old voice at the side. Jun Shong, Qingwan Fairy must have an important matter to ask for an audience. You should meet her. You should know that Qingwan Fairy is Tianyi Men's chief disciple, and also the most likely next sect leader. Her medical skills are the best in the world. No matter how powerful the people of my polar domain are, in the future, we can't do without the assistance of Tianyi Men. Di Mingju ponders for a moment, still not raising his head. Let her come in. A moment later, a figure in a snow-white robe leisurely walked into the hall. Her appearance was elegant and beautiful, but the temperament around her was cold and ascetic, giving off a noble and graceful aura that couldn't be profaned. The old man who just spoke looked at Lung Qingwan, then looked at his Jun Shong, and stroked his beard in satisfaction. Lung Qingwan greets the emperor. The ethereal figure slowly bowed. Her skirt swayed gently, and the colorful flowing light lingered and flickered. This caused Lung Qingwan's temperament to become even more radiant and otherworldly. Di Mingju raises his head and sees this scene. His line of sight is fixated on that multicolored flowing skirt, unable to move away. His brows also slightly wrinkle. "Emperor, what are you looking at?" Lung Qingwan raises her clear and cold little face to look at Di Mingju. There's no humility on her face, she's still neither servile nor defiant, but her pair of bright eyes overflows with a trace of tenderness and honey. But what's wrong with Qingwan's attire? Di Mingju coldly snorts, his face expressionless as he says, "What business do you have with Ben Jun?" Di Mingju, I heard that someone divined the birth of a descendant of a Shun musician, but these people were all either killed or captured by the people of the polar domain within a short half a month. Di Ming, is this your order? Chapter 216. But, what if it's true? What if the successor of the Shun musicians really did reappear? Di Jun, you should be very clear that if the Shun musicians were to revive, it would bring a great disaster to the Shoshen continent. Lung Qingwan's clear and cold eyes flash with a hint of killing intent. As long as it's related to the Shun musicians, we should kill one to warn 100, to prevent future troubles. Lung Qingwan hasn't finished speaking when the chair under the man sitting at the head of the table suddenly shatters into fine powder. A terrible pressure pervades the main hall, making Lung Qingwan's body involuntarily tremble. Di Mingju looks down at her coldly. How Ben Jun does things, when it's Tianyi Men's turn to comment. "Get out. You." Lung Qingwan's complexion is pale, her chest heaving up and down. But she quickly calms down. Because in the entire Shoshen continent, there's no one who doesn't know that the polar domain's Di Jun is famous for being unmoved by force or persuasion. His personality is cold and aloof. It's impossible for other women to stand in front of Di Mingju, even if they wanted to see him, but she can still see him from time to time. This is the biggest difference between Di Jun and her, and also the manifestation of Di Jun's friendship towards her. Lung Qingwan's expression slowly returns to calm, and she softens her voice. Why is Di Jun so eager to cover up the news of the Shun musicians? Could it be that Di Jun knows something? Di Mingju's eyes darken, a murderous intent looming in his heart. At the side, Elder Chang suddenly chuckles and says, "Then Qingwan Fairy is in such a hurry to exterminate the Shun musicians. Is it because back then, Tianyi Men was completely suppressed by the Shun musicians to the point that they couldn't breathe? After being the number 2 for so long, your mentality is out of balance. Don't talk nonsense." This sentence seems to poke at Lung Qingwan's sore spot, making her shout angrily, "My Tianyi Men is fully deserving of being the number 1 immortal doctor's sect in the Shoshan continent. We won't be afraid of anyone, and absolutely won't be afraid of anyone's provocation. Hee, if you're not afraid, then that's naturally the best." This old man thought that Qingwan Xianzi and the people of Tianyi Men were especially afraid of the Shun musicians' revival one day. Lung Qingwan's chest heaves uncontrollably, the indignation and unwillingness in her eyes are clear. But no matter how she refutes, it's like revealing 300 taels of silver. In the end, he could only leave angrily. As soon as Lung Qingwan left, the old man at the side immediately said, "Lord, why must you be so cold to Fairy Qingwan? In the entire Shoshan continent, in terms of cultivation, appearance, and identity, Qingwan Xianzi can be said to be the only woman worthy of Jun Shong." Di Mingju frowns, a trace of impatience flashing through his eyes. Elder Chang, who was at the side, immediately shared Jun Shong's worries in a very considerate manner. "Elder Ji, have you forgotten that Jun Shong is fated to marry the Lady of Destiny?" Hearing this, Di Mingju's brows immediately relax. He turned to look at Elder Chang and nodded subtly. "Well said. I'll reward you later." Elder Chang stroked his beard, his smiling face scrunched up into a ball. However, Elder Ji frowned and his face was full of disdain. "What woman of destiny? That's just nonsense. I think Fairy Qingwan is pretty good. If Fairy Qingwan marries Jun Shong, then the entire Tianyi Men will belong to our Ji domain." Chapter 217. Old Ji trembles under Di Mingju's azura-like gaze. He hesitantly takes a step back and says with an awkward smile, "This old man wants to marry her, but Qingwan Xianzi only fancies you, Jun Shong, Di Mingju narrows his eyes and coldly says, "Ben Jun sees that you have nothing better to do now. Just in time, do something for Ben Jun What is it?" Ben Jun wants 50 of Lung Qingwan's dresses, no, 100. Moreover, they must be able to cross the space barrier and bring them to Yanwu continent. Old Ji opens his mouth wide, dumbfounded. "Jun Shong, you're playing with me. Do you know what that dress is woven from? Do you know that Qingwan Fairy only has one? You want 100. 100 Where the hell do you want this old man to find it? What's more, this mysterious ice-pleated fringed skirt has immortal energy attached to it. That's why it can sway so beautifully and fill the eyes with light. How can he sneak into Yanwu continent with this thing?" Di Mingju snorts and turns his head to ignore him. Thinking of Lung Qingwan's colorful dress, he becomes even more upset. Di Mingju's, woman can't even wear such a beautiful dress, it's simply intolerable. If he could personally put it on Muyan, it would certainly be very beautiful. Thinking about it, Jun Shong's ears quietly redden. "Jun Shong, please spare this old man," Old Ji wails as he crawls on the ground, about to cry and throw a tantrum to get rid of this impossible task. Suddenly, he sees a familiar figure tumbling and crawling in from the entrance of the Great Hall. Jun Shong, this is bad. Seeing who it is, Di Mingju's pupils fiercely contract. His figure flashes and he appears in front of the person in the blink of an eye. Did something happen to Muyan? The person he grabs by the collar has a sullen face, tears and snot flowing down. "Jun Shong, it's Han Yi's fault. Please kill this subordinate. Speak. What happened?" "Miss Muyan, she's gone." Under Di Mingju's fierce and murderous gaze, Han Yi trembles as he says, "The Junji drugstore next to our courtyard, it's completely empty." Di Mingju's expression tightens. Someone kidnapped them? Han Yi shakily shakes his head again. It seems that Miss Jun herself, left on her own. Peng, Di Ming's hand loosened. Han Yi falls to the ground. Di Mingju's face reveals a trace of absent-mindedness, a trace of grievance, and a trace of pain. Mu Yang left. Why didn't he inform me? There wasn't even the slightest bit of lingering or reluctance. Mu Yang, aren't you tempted in the slightest? Everyone had never seen their lord reveal such a lonely expression. They were all dumbfounded. Even Han Yi lowers his head in annoyance. Jun Shong, please punish this subordinate. This subordinate didn't do a good job. Elder Chang sighed softly as well. Then, what are Lord's plans? Why don't we let our main bodies return to the Shoshen continent? As soon as his voice falls, Di Mingju's sharp gaze immediately sweeps over. You still haven't married Ben Jun's woman? What did you come back for? Ah! Elder Chang is dumbfounded. Then what does Jun Shong plan to do? Seeing Jun Shong's sorrowful appearance just now, he thought that his dignity had been thwarted, and that he was sad and disappointed. But now, it seems like, Di Mingju grits his teeth, sneering, naturally it's to go down immediately and catch that woman. You want to run away from Ben Jun's palm, dream on. Jun Muyan, you dare to run away from Ben Jun's side. Chapter 218. Early the next morning, Shen Jinglin immediately takes the only things in the room and limps towards Muyan's room. At the thought that his sister, who has been missing for so many years, has returned, his weathered face reveals a trace of exuberant vitality. But at this moment, Shen Xiao's malicious voice suddenly comes from behind. Big brother, please stay. My future sister-in-law and your future father-in-law have come to visit. Don't tell me you're not going to meet them. The content of the words makes Shen Jinglin's body suddenly stiffen. The trace of a smile and vitality on his face disappears without a trace. Leaning on his cane, he turns around with difficulty, gritting his teeth and squeezing out two words. I won't see them. Won't see them? Shen Xiao exclaims. Big brother, what do you mean by that? Don't tell me you don't care about father's life or death. Mother also said that you are the most filial person in the world. It turned out to be a lie. Shen Jinglin's hands tightly clench into fists, and after a long while, he hoarsely says, I see them. Shen Xiao's eyes flash with a contemptuous and proud smile, and she leads Shen Jinglin to the front hall. At this time, in the front hall, Su Yuexiang is gracefully sitting upright, tasting tea, her eyes filled with a gentle smile. And sitting below is an old man with a white beard. And an extremely ugly woman with a wide face, crooked nose, and buck teeth. Seeing Shen Jinglin come in, the woman's small eyes immediately narrow into slits from smiling, her eyes full of infatuation and greed. Jinglin Gidge, you've come. 1 day apart is like 3 years, Nunu missed you to death. Saying that, she pounces towards Shen Jinglin. Shen Jinglin is flustered and disgusted, he wants to dodge. However, he has no internal force, and his legs and feet are crippled. How can he dodge? He stumbles and falls to the ground. His appearance is as miserable as one can get. Shen Xiao and Su Yuexiang, on the side, have a gloating look on their faces. They don't have the slightest intention of going up to help. As soon as the ugly woman sees him fall, she immediately pounces over excitedly, pouts her plump lips, and is about to kiss Shen Jinglin's face. Get lost. Shen Jinglin roars, and ruthlessly slaps her face. After being slapped, the ugly girl immediately threw a tantrum and sat on the ground, waving her hands and feet as she cried loudly. The white-bearded old man's expression suddenly became severe, and he fiercely slapped the table. Shen Jinglin, what do you mean by this? You've already agreed to marry into my Ju clan. My Nu is your wife. How dare you make a move against your wife's mistress? Shen Jinglin's face turned purple, his eyes full of shame and indignation. I didn't agree. Jinglin, don't talk nonsense. Do you want to ruin your father's only chance of survival? Su Yuexiang put down the teacup with a bang and interrupted Shen Jinglin's words. Don't forget, in Tianyuan City, the only one who can cure your father is Dr. Ju. But father he's still lying on the sickbed, his life and death uncertain. Shen Jinglin roared. Do you not believe in this old man's medical skills? Dr. Ju sneered. Fine, this old man will show you one more skill today. Let's go and meet the patient. The group soon arrived at an underground secret chamber. The secret chamber's door is layered with more than a dozen locks. When the last lock was opened, a burst of crazy roars came from inside. Chapter 219. Father. As soon as he saw this person, Shun Jinglin's eyes immediately reddened. He called out in a low voice and walked forward. As if sensing the approach of a living person, the man immediately roared and opened his mouth to bite. Shun Jinglin staggered back a step. Looking at the miserable appearance of her father, Shun Icheng, she could no longer hold back her tears. At this moment, Dr. Ju said faintly from behind, "Move aside. I'll treat him first." Saying that, he takes a step forward and reaches out to poke a few times on the Shun father's body. Then, she gives him a bottle of draft. As the draft enters the abdomen, a miraculous thing happens. The Shun father, who has been howling madly all this time, unexpectedly slowly quiets down. He lies down on the ground, not making a sound. Shun Jinglin went forward to check and found that the Shun father had actually fallen asleep. Ever since the Shun father's illness, he hasn't had a good night's sleep. But as soon as Dr. Ju's medicine entered his stomach, he actually fell asleep. Dr. Ju, your medical skills are really brilliant. Su Yuexiang immediately exclaimed in admiration and bowed with her hands folded in front. Please be kind and save our master. Dr. Ju stroked his beard with a smug look on his face. Of course I can save him. But I've already told you my conditions. Shun Jinglin must marry into my Ju family, otherwise, you guys will have to find someone else. Dr. Ju, if you don't save him, our master won't be able to do anything, Su Yuexiang exclaimed, her face full of anxiety. Then, she looked at Shun Jinglin. Tears trickled down, looking indescribably pitiful. Jinglin, Aunt Su is begging you. Our Shun family only has an orphan and a widow left. Without your father's support, our Shun family will collapse. I beg you, please save master. Shun Jinglin fearfully looked at his unconscious father and then looked at Dr. Ju's daughter. The person in front of him immediately grinned at him, revealing a large bloody mouth, calling out in a sweet voice, "Big brother Jinglin, Nu likes you the most, quickly come and be Nu's husband." Shun Jinglin only felt despair in his heart. If he agreed, the rest of his life would be ruined. But if he didn't agree, what would happen to his father's life? Jinglin, if you don't agree, then Aunt Su can only agree to the Lu family's request and marry Muyan to their foolish son, Lu Yotsai. The Lu family is powerful and wealthy. I believe they will definitely find a way to treat master. No. None of you are allowed to touch Yang Yang. Shun Jinglin abruptly let out a howl, his eyes filled with blood, seeming as if he wanted to fight with his life on the line. Su Yuexiang wipes her tears and says, I also don't want to push Muyan into the fire pit, but who told the foolish son of the Lu family to take a fancy to Muyan? If master never wakes up, our Shun family will have an orphan and a widow. Even if the Lu family bullies our door to snatch them, what can we do? Alas, it's a pity that Muyan is as beautiful as a flower and as beautiful as the moon. She actually has to marry that fool from the Lu family. Shun Jinglin gritted his teeth, his eyes full of despair. He slowly unclenched his fists and said in a hoarse voice, as long as I agree to marry into the Ju family, you will definitely be able to cure my father. Naturally, this old man is the #1 genius doctor in Tianyuan City. As long as the bridal sedan chair carries you to the Ju family and you consummate your marriage with my daughter, this old man will immediately cure Master Shun's illness. Dr. Ju's eyes were sharp as he said this unhurriedly. Chapter 220. Naturally, this old man is Tianyuan City's #1 godly doctor. As long as the bridal sedan carries you to the Ju family, and you consummate your marriage with my daughter, this old man will immediately cure Master Shun's illness. Dr. Ju's eyes are sharp, unhurriedly saying this. On the side, Ju Huanyu's body is trembling with excitement. She looks at Shun Jinglin like she's looking at a fat piece of meat that's about to reach her mouth. Shun Jinglin slowly closes his eyes, his face filled with desolation like dead ashes. "All right, Before he could finish his words, the door of the secret room suddenly creaks, and it's pushed open again. As the door is pushed open, a woman's clear and melodious voice is heard. "I knew that brother was hiding something from me, but I didn't expect that it would be such a stupid thing." Hearing this voice and seeing the person's figure, Shen Jinglin suddenly widens his eyes. "Yang Yang. Why would Yang Yang come here?" Su Yuexiang and Shen Xiao also have shock written all over their faces. One must know that the door of this secret room has a mechanism, and each door weighs 1,000 pounds. Without a key, an ordinary martial practitioner simply can't open it. This Jun Muyan, how did she come down? The people who come in are Muyan and Xiao Bao, who's at her side. Facing everyone's flabbergasted eyes, Xiao Bao disdainfully pats the dust off his hands, then takes Muyan's hand. "There's a lot of dust on these iron doors." Xiao Bao doesn't want to dirty Nyang Qin's hands. Shen Jinglin suddenly comes back to his senses. "Yang Yang, what are you doing here? You even brought Xiao Bao. Quickly leave here." Muyan doesn't pay attention to him. Instead, she crouches in front of the unconscious Shen father. With a complicated expression, she mutters, "Father, Yang Yang." Shen Jinglin anxiously raises his voice. "Father is fine, he'll be cured very soon. Can you leave here first?" As he says this, Shen Jinglin's eyes already carry a sorrowful plea. Muyan's expression hardens, and she says coldly, "Leave here, and then watch helplessly as brother, for father's sake, for me, marry a woman he doesn't love." "Oh, not marry, but marry into her family." "Muyan, what are you doing?" Su Yuexiang says, "Your brother has no choice. Isn't it all to save your father? Don't tell me you want to watch your father go crazy and die. Save father." Muyan sneers, "Aunt Su, why don't you let your own daughter save him? Why do you want brother to save him? Why do you want brother to save him?" Mu Yang immediately interrupts her, unhurriedly looking at Dr. Ju. "What's more, if my brother marries into the Ju family, will my father's illness really be cured?" When Dr. Ju heard that, he immediately scowled and said with dissatisfaction, "Who do you think you are? Are you questioning this old man's medical skills?" Muyan chuckles, "Empty words are no proof. What if after my brother marries into the Shen family, Dr. Ju can't cure him? Then who are we going to reason with? Why don't we do it this way? Dr. Ju, please cure my father first. Once he's cured, we can talk about marrying into your family. Do you think this old man is stupid?" Dr. Ju said angrily. "What if this old man goes back on his word after I cure him?" Chapter 221. Muyan sneers, "You can't guarantee 100% cure, and you can't tell the illness, yet you still want my brother to marry into your family. Do you think our Shen family are fools? You." Dr. Ju's complexion alternated between green and white. Fine. Since you don't believe me, then I won't treat you." Dr. Ju looked like he was about to leave. However, Ju Huanyu realized that Mu Yang wanted to destroy her marriage. Her ugly face immediately distorted as she roared and pounced towards Mu Yang. "You dare to snatch my husband, watch me tear your mouth apart, you slut." "Yang Yang, be careful," Shen Jinglin exclaims, and recklessly rushes over to block it for Mu Yang. But before he could do anything, Little Treasure had already stretched out a fair and tender finger. He pointed at Ju Huanyu. In an instant, Ju Huanyu's entire body stiffened, unable to move. Mu Yang slowly steps forward and walks to the side of Ju Huanyu, whose face is full of fright. She leisurely says, "If you want to prove that Dr. Ju has a way to treat my father's illness, it's actually very simple. You just need to find a patient with the same illness, and it'll be fine." Why aren't you letting go of my daughter?" Dr. Ju shouted in exasperation. Hearing Mu Yang's words, he immediately looks disdainful. "What kind of joke is this? You want to find a patient with the same illness for this old man to see? As long as you find it, this old man will treat you." Mu Yang hooks up her lips and smiles brightly. "Then, it's a deal." As soon as her voice falls, Muyan suddenly takes off Ju Hua's lower jaw and pours a bottle of draft inside. Soon after, she reconnects the lower jaw joint. Dr. Ju was so angry that he stomped his feet and rushed over. "Stupid girl, what are you going to do to my daughter?" If anything happens to my Nunu, I'll make you pay with your life. With a gentle push from Mu Yang, Zhu Huanyu is pushed in front of Dr. Zhu. Just as Dr. Zhu was about to check on his daughter's condition, he saw Zhu Huanyu's scowling face suddenly twist. Then, it suddenly opened its bloody mouth and bit down on Dr. Zhu's neck. Dr. Zhu let out a howl like a pig being slaughtered. With great difficulty, he managed to pull Zhu Huanyu away. Mu Yang grabs a piece of chain and swings it, firmly binding Zhu Huanyu. Dr. Zhu covered his bleeding neck and looked at his daughter. He saw his daughter frantically trying to jump onto his body. Her mouth was wide open, and the flesh on his neck was still hanging from her neck. From time to time, he would let out beast-like howls. That symptom, actually really was almost exactly the same as the Shen father's. Shen Jinglin is dumbfounded. He looks at Zhu Huanyu, then looks at Muyan. Yang, you. Mu Yang tilts her head and smiles at him. Didn't I tell my brother? I know a little about medicine. To be able to replicate his father's illness, this is called a little bit of medical skill. As if she had guessed what he was thinking, Muyan's voice rang out again. So, you don't have to worry, big brother. Whether it's your leg or your father's life, I'll take it back. Even if we have to seize it from the hands of the King Yang Luo of Hell. Mu Yang's voice was very soft, only Shen Jinglin and Xiao Bao could hear it. But that soft voice was like a clap of thunder, like the beating of a drum, resounding in Shen Jinglin's ears. His heart, which had already been dead, was slowly being revived. Could it be that father could really recover? Could his leg really be restored? He really didn't need to marry into the Zhu family. Chapter 222. Dr. Zhu fiercely glares at Mu Yang. What did you do to my daughter? Mu Yang says with a smile that isn't a smile. Didn't I say? Create a patient who is exactly like my father. Isn't this patient your daughter, Zhu Huanyu? Oh, right, it's not exactly the same, because I added something in this poison. That is, this poison can be transmitted through blood, saliva, and teeth. Moreover, I've accelerated the onset of the disease by 100 times. If you can't detoxify it immediately, after an hour, Dr. Zhu, you and your daughter will die a violent death. Dr. Zhu's whole body shudders, his complexion deathly pale, his lips trembling. What did you say? What poison? I don't know. Is that so? So Dr. Zhu doesn't know that my father has been poisoned? Mu Yang shakes her head with a sigh. That's really a pity. If my father can't be cured, Dr. Zhu and your daughter's lives can't be saved. Dr. Zhu's eyes widen in horror, his face full of horror. He suddenly turns to look at Su Yuexiang. Antidote, quickly give me and Nunu the antidote. Saying that, he pounces over and hugs Su Yuexiang's leg. Su Yuexiang's complexion is ashen. What nonsense are you talking about? How could I have the antidote? Didn't you tell me to come and treat Master Shen? Didn't you say that as long as Shen Jinglin? Before Dr. Zhu can finish speaking, there's a sudden poochy sound of a sword piercing into flesh behind him. Shen Xiao pulls out the long sword that's pierced into Dr. Zhu's body, turns the blade, and pierces Zhu Huanyu's heart. Damn thing, actually daring to scheme against our Shen family, deserved to die. Saying that, Shen Xiao also gives Su Yuexiang a meaningful look. Su Yuexiang immediately understands and nods again and again. Exactly, I didn't expect this surnamed Zhu to be a swindler who deceives the world. Our family's Jinglin was almost deceived by him. Fortunately, you exposed him, Mu Yang. Mu Yang looks at the mother and daughter's performance with a smile that isn't a smile. The girl's smile is obviously very beautiful, but Su Yuexiang and Shen Xiao only feel chills all over their bodies, like a prick on their backs. Su Yuexiang laughs dryly. Muyan, I didn't expect that after 5 years of not seeing you, your medical skills have become so good. By the way, you can make Zhu Huanyu suffer from the same poison. Does that mean you can also cure your father's illness? When she said this, Su Yuexiang looked anxious and concerned on the surface. However, a trace of fear flashed across his eyes. If Shen Yicheng woke up, then what she had done. Muyan glances at the Shen father on the ground, and slowly says, it can be cured, but father's poison is too deep. To cure it It will take at least 7 days. During this period of time, we can only put father in a coma. As soon as they hear that it will take 7 days to cure the Shen father, Su Yuexiang and Shen Xiaoro clearly show expressions of relief. A sinister smile appeared on Shen Xiaoro's face. 7 days. 7 days later, Jun Muyan, you'll be carried to the Lu family, pressed under that fool of the Lu family, wantonly toyed with and humiliated. How could he bring this old fart back to life? Mu Yang looks at the expressions of these two people, and a chill flashes through her eyes. The Shen father is no longer in a state of madness, but in a coma, so he was transferred out of the dark and damp dungeon, and transferred to a wing room. Shen Jinglin sits by the window, watching the Shen father's sleeping appearance, the rims of his eyes slightly red. Chapter 223. Why is it that none of the old servants and maids that she's familiar with are left? Shen Jinglin disappointedly shakes his head. I don't know. Ever since you disappeared, father has been looking for your whereabouts, starting from the Su family's fire, one city after another, one country after another. But there's been no news, until a year ago, father suddenly said that he seemed to have a clue about your disappearance, and wanted to investigate. But after several months, there was no news from father. When he appeared again, he was lying in a pool of blood all over his body. After waking up, he's always had this deranged appearance. Muyan stares blankly, and only after a long while does she say, "Father has been looking for me." Yes. Shen Jinglin looks at Muyan guiltily. Yang, father and I have always felt very sorry for you. At that time, we clearly knew that Su Yuexiang wasn't good to you, but we left you to gain experience on our own. When we came back, we found out that they had sent you to the Su family, and you were even pregnant with a child. At that time, father and I tried our best to bring you back, but Su Yuexiang obstructed us in every possible way. I had no choice but to sneak into the Su family's territory to look for you, but who knew that you'd already disappeared? After you disappeared, father often drank to drown his sorrows. When he was drunk, he kept shouting that he was sorry to his sworn brother, sorry to his benefactor, and that he didn't take good care of his only daughter. Shen Jinglin holds Muyan's hand, his voice choked with sobs. Yang, can you forgive father? He's not a good father, but all these years, he really regretted that he didn't take good care of you. Muyan has a complicated expression as she looks at the unconscious Shen father on the bed. After a long time, she whispers, Muyan still hasn't repaid father's kindness in raising me, how could I forgive him? Brother, then how did your leg get injured? Shen Jinglin stares blankly, then the emotions in his eyes slowly tumble. Embarrassment, humiliation, pain, unwillingness, one by one, surge up. Finally, he closes his eyes and hisses, Yang, brother, please don't ask. We can't provoke that person, we really can't. Just let it go, okay? Muyan still wants to say more, but she sees Shen Jinglin's despair and pain on the verge of collapse. She swallows back the words on the tip of her tongue. Okay, brother, don't be sad, I won't ask. But don't worry, I will definitely cure your leg. Shen Jinglin slowly calmed down. Does father really need 7 days to wake up? When Mu Yang heard this, she chuckled. Of course not, father was poisoned. Even if the poison entered his lungs, as long as the antidote was appropriate, he would be able to wake up immediately. Then you said, 7 days. Haha, if I didn't say 7 days, how could those two foxes show their tails? Saying that, she mischievously winked at Shen Jinglin. Brother, 6 days later, little sister will treat you to a good show, how about it? 6 days later. When the Lu family's wedding procession arrives in a grandiose manner, Muyan and Shen Jinglin are in the room looking after the Shen father. Hearing the heaven-shaking sound of the swaner and gongs outside, Shen Jinglin asked in surprise, what's going on? Muyan looks outside with a smile that isn't a smile, it's probably the Lu family's wedding procession. The Lu family is welcoming the bride. Shen Jinglin's eyes widened in shock. When did our Shen family become related to the Lu family? Without waiting for Mu Yang to answer, the door of the room is pushed open with a bang. Chapter 224. There's an unconcealable joy between their brows. Behind Su Yuexiang is Lu Chongcai, dressed in a red wedding dress, but because of his fat figure, he looks like a red pig. There's also the Lu family's master and Madame Lu, who are similarly dressed. As soon as she sees Muyan, Shinshiro immediately laughs. Muyan Maimai, congratulations, congratulations. As soon as Shin Jinglin sees this scene, he immediately has a bad premonition. When he hears Shinshiro's words, he's even more flustered. What nonsense are you talking about? Haha, today is Muyan Meimei's big day. As her older sister, of course, I have to congratulate her. Shinshiro looks at the nauseating Lu Chunksai behind her, then looks at Muyan. The smile on her face is even more carefree. When Lu Chunksai sees Muyan, his saliva immediately drips down, and he keeps shouting, "Fairy sister, marry her and sleep." Madame Lu immediately smiles and pacifies him. "All right, rest assured, Chunksai, will immediately marry fairy sister and let you sleep, and give mother a big fat grandson." At this moment, how could Shin Jinglin not know what's going on? In a split second, he's trembling with anger. "You, don't go too far. When did my Shin family and the Lu family have an engagement? You want my Maimai to marry a fool, dream on. Who said there wasn't an engagement?" Madame Lu coldly snorts, "The marriage certificate is here." Shin Jinglin takes the marriage certificate and looks at it. He sees that it's indeed a marriage certificate between the Shin family and the Lu family, but it only states that it's a daughter of the Shin family, not which one. It only says that it's a daughter of the Shin family. If you want to marry so much, why don't you marry your daughter over? Yanyan's surname isn't Shin, what right do you have to decide her marriage? Facing Shin Jinglin's questioning, Su Yuexiang faintly smiles, and says helplessly, "I can't do anything about this. Who told Muyan to be an outstanding beauty, that the Lu family's young master fancies her, but not our family's Ru'er? Jinglin, why don't you take a look at the Lu family's influence in Tianyuan City? What cultivation does the Lu family's master have? Now that your father is in such a half-dead state, if we don't marry Muyan over today, our Shin family will be finished." Shin Jinglin's complexion was deathly white, his pair of eyes almost spurting fire. Right now, he did not even have the slightest bit of cultivation, but he did not hesitate to block in front of Mu Yang. "Don't you dare touch Yang Yang. Su Yuexiang, you bunch of beasts. 5 years ago, you already ruined Yang Yang once, and now you still want to ruin her. This time, even if I die, I absolutely won't allow you to ruin Yanyan's life." Shinshiro sneers, "You're a cripple, and you still want to protect Muyan? Hihi, don't make me laugh to death. Jun Muyan, I advise you to obediently marry young Master Lu, okay? Although young Master Lu is a little silly, the Lu family has a big business. I believe you will be able to eat and drink well every day in the future. What else do you have to be dissatisfied with? You, get out. All of you, get out. My little sister won't get married, not even if she dies." Shin Jinglin crazily shoved the group of people who entered the room. However, his legs were inconvenient, and before the other party could make a move, he almost fell down. If Xiaobao had not been by his side and supported him at the critical moment, he would have been in a sorry state by now. Chapter 225. With a cold snort, he ruthlessly slaps the mahogany table at the side. That sturdy table actually shatters in response. A formidable pressure belonging to an Earth-stage powerhouse spreads out, making everyone in the room go silent like cicadas in winter. Shin Jinglin's complexion is even more deathly pale, his internal organs tumble, and he almost spits out blood. But at this moment, a pair of small hands pinch his fingers. Shin Jinglin inexplicably feels a warm current pour into his body, and the pain of all his internal organs being crushed, at this moment, disappears without a trace. He looks down in astonishment, but what he sees is Xiao Bao's icy and delicate little face. For a moment, he's somewhat stupefied. On the other side, after Master Lu slaps out his palm, he wraps up a terrible pressure and walks towards Shin Jinglin step by step. Hehe, if my Lu family wants to do something, there's nothing in Tianyuan City that can't be done. Originally, I didn't want to make a move on this joyous occasion, but since you actually don't know what's good for you, don't blame me for being impolite. Saying that, he raises his hand and slaps the top of Shin Jinglin's head. At the same time, Madame Lu also shouts, "Someone, go tie that woman up for me and change her wedding clothes. To be able to marry into my Lu family, that's your good fortune, and you actually still dare to resist. If she's still disobedient, you can break the tendons in her hands and feet. In any case, it's enough that she's my Lu family's daughter-in-law, as long as she can bear children." Bang! A sound rings out. A swift and fierce energy is emitted from the bed, and in the blink of an eye, it hits Master Lu's hand. It prevents him from killing Shen Jinglin. "I, Shinicheng, am not dead yet. If you want to touch my son and daughter, have you asked me?" Cough, cough, cough. The sudden hoarse voice startles everyone in the room. Shen Jinglin stiffly turns his head back, and sees the Shen father sitting up, his eyes clear and bright. The rims of his eyes immediately redden. Dad, are you all right?" He immediately throws himself to the bedside, unable to stop his tears from gushing out, tightly grasping the Shen father's bony hand. The rims of Shinicheng's eyes are also red. He holds his hand and chokes with sobs. "Jinglin, it's father. I'm sorry to you, and I'm sorry to Yang Yang." Cough, cough. As he spoke, he raised his head to look at Mu Yang. His tearful eyes were filled with guilt and self-blame. "Yang Yang, father has let you down. I didn't take good care of you, and even let you suffer such humiliation and grievance." When he thought of how his sworn brother had entrusted him with such a task before he left, or even before he died, he couldn't do it. Shinicheng felt so guilty that he did not have the face to continue living. However, now was not the time for him to die. Without waiting for Mu Yang to speak, Shinicheng's expression becomes firm. He clenches his teeth and says, "But Yang Yang, don't worry. Father has made a mistake once, but he absolutely won't make a second mistake. Today, even if I have to risk this old life of mine, I will never let these people succeed." Mu Yang looks at this emaciated old man who shakily gets up from the bed. Her expression is somewhat complicated. Say that she doesn't blame the Shen father? Of course it was resentful. Resentful that he caused the death of her mother, Seng Xiuying. Resentful that he half-heartedly provoked Su Yuexiang. Resentful that he gave her to Su Yuexiang, causing her to suffer so much, even losing her innocence and getting pregnant before marriage. However, in the end, this person has raised her for more than 10 years. After she went missing in her past life, this person has been working hard to find her, never giving up. This person is clearly not related to her, but he really loves her like his own daughter. Chapter 226. But when Su Yuexiang and Shen Xiaro see Shinicheng suddenly wake up, they are almost scared out of their wits. Su Yuexiang is the first to react. She puts on a fake smile and steps forward. "Master, you're finally awake. You've been delirious this year, making me worried." Her voice hasn't fallen when Shinicheng suddenly raises his hand and ruthlessly slaps her face. "Poisonous woman, don't pretend in front of me. I know exactly what you've done all these years. You and that surnamed Jew conspired at my bedside to kill me and ruin my son's life. Do you think I don't know?" Su Yuexiang staggers from the hit. She still hasn't recovered, but when she hears Shinicheng's words, her beautiful face turns pale and her whole body shivers. "Master, what are you talking about? This concubine doesn't understand." "Don't understand?" Father Chen's eyes are red. Like a roaring lion, he's itching to pounce on Su Yuexiang and tear her to pieces. "You took advantage of me being injured and unconscious to poison my medicine, making me go crazy, turning me into something that's neither human nor ghost. Now, you still want to hide it? Slut, the thing I regret the most in my life is marrying a poisonous woman like you. I can't wait to skin you alive." The Shen father roars. He can't bear it anymore and madly pounces towards Su Yuexiang. Su Yuexiang has been suppressed for so long under the Shen father's majesty. Suddenly discovering that her plot has been exposed, she only feels a roar in her head and even forgets to hide. But Shen Xiaro sneers and pulls Su Yuexiang away from the Shen father's attack. Then she contemptuously says, "Mother, why are you afraid of this old fart? Do you think Shinicheng is still the same Shinicheng after lying in bed for a year? Look at his swaying appearance. I'm afraid he can't even take one move from Uncle Lu." "Uncle Lu, don't you think so? When Master Lu hears Shenxiao's praise, he immediately laughs. He looks at Shen Yicheng with a mocking gaze. That's right. Do you think you're still the Shen Yicheng whose name shook Tianyuan? Humph. Today, my Lu family is determined to have your daughter. If you are sensible and obedient, then the Shen family will be my Lu family's in-laws in the future. You can also enjoy your old age. If you dare to resist, I'll kill you right now. Hearing this, Su Yuexiang slowly recovered from her fear of Shen Yicheng. Look at Shen Yicheng now. His black hair had turned white. The skin on his face was full of wrinkles. He had only been in bed for a year, but he seemed to have aged 10 years. The terrifying pressure of an Earth-rank powerhouse around him had also disappeared without a trace. Su Yuexiang seemed to realize something at this moment and laughed out loud. Shen Yicheng, you old fart, you deserve this day. All these years, I've served you like a slave, but what about you? In your heart, there is only Seng Xiuying, that bitch who has already turned into ashes. You treat an adopted daughter better than your own daughter. You called me a poisonous woman. Let me tell you, you asked for it. Today, not only do I want you Shen father and son to die, I also want you to personally see your precious and beloved adopted daughter being defiled by a fool. Ha 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 ha. When Su Yuexiang said these words, her entire elegant face is twisted. Like a malevolent demon. Chapter 227. This time, if it really explodes. Su Yuexiang would indeed be seriously injured, but the Shen father would also die because he's a lamp without oil. At this critical moment, suddenly, the sound of a zither resounds in the room. The palm that the Shen father wants to send out, but before he could lift it, it's caught by a small, fair and tender hand. At the same time, the sound of a zither lingers in the room, accompanied by a young girl's soft and sweet-sounding voice. Isn't it supposed to be a joyous occasion? Why is everyone's murderous aura so heavy? Why don't we all sit down and watch this good show together? Xiao Bao, ask your grandfather and uncle to sit down. The Shen father lowers his head in a daze, but is aghast to see a delicate little face. It's a pink jade-carved baby, only 4 or 5 years old. However, the blow that he wanted to send out after gathering all his internal force, yet under this little baby's gentle grasp, it effortlessly returns to the qi within his body. What's going on here? Xiao Bao expressionlessly looks at him, using an ice-cold, childish voice to say, Grandfather, Nyang Qin wants you to sit down. Grandpa? This little baby, who's even more beautiful than the golden boy of the celestial immortals, is calling him grandfather. The Shen father is dumbfounded. So much so that he even forgets to resist and question. Caught by Xiao Bao, he staggers back to the bedside and sits down. Xiao Bao looks at Shen Jinglin with his clear, sapphire-like eyes. Without waiting for the little baby to open his mouth, Shen Jinglin immediately says, all right, uncle will sit down. Xiao Bao sees that his grandfather and uncle have both sat down, and only then does he put his small hands behind his back. Like a little adult, he returns to Muyan's side and sticks close to her. Muyan doesn't know when, but she's already leisurely sitting by the low table. There's a zither on the table, and her jade-like fingers are lightly plucking the strings, making a pleasant sound. From beginning to end, she looks like she's leisurely watching a play. There's not even a little bit of fear on her face that she's about to marry a fool. On the contrary, her eyes are full of ridicule and ridicule. Only when Xiao Bao leans against her does she reveal a gentle smile and stroke his head, indicating that he's doing well. Seeing her attitude, Shen Xiao inexplicably flustered. He couldn't help but think back to that time at Kulai restaurant. She thought that she could properly humiliate Mu Yang, but who knew that she would be forced by Mu Yang to crawl out in public. Patriarch Lu, what are you waiting for? Shen Xiao suddenly shouted at Lu Yongli, don't you want this woman to be your daughter-in-law? Tie her up and carry her back, and your son can consummate his marriage. If he misses this woman, that silly son of yours will never be able to marry such a good wife again. Madame Lu fiercely glares at Shen Xiao, if you dare to slander my son again, I'll tear your mouth apart. However, seeing that her son is infatuated and drooling at Muyan, she still said to Clan Master Lu, but what this girl said is right. To avoid any undue delay, I think it's better to carry her back immediately to bow to heaven and earth and get married. Patriarch Lu narrowed his eyes and pondered for a moment before waving his hand. Go. Tie this woman up. The servants of the Lu family heard the order and rushed forward. However, before they could get close, Muyan's hands, which are resting on the zither strings, suddenly move. In an instant, dozens of zither notes turn into blades, and like lightning, they shoot towards the servants of the Lu family. These dozen or so people don't even have the time to raise the swords in their hands. Their chests suddenly emit puffing sounds, and blood splatters everywhere. Soon after, they fall down stiffly. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.